We had both lived in the same orphanage. The crown prince of Beijing's elite circle became convinced I was his childhood playmate and pursued me relentlessly. On our wedding day, his actual childhood sweetheart learned of our marriage and jumped from a tall building. Before dying, she left a suicide note. "You promised you'd come back to marry me, so I've been waiting all this time." Zhang Xianying broke down sobbing, directing all his resentment at me. In a rage, he shoved me into oncoming traffic. I was hit by a car and killed. With my dying breath, I heard him scream, "If it weren't for you, Xiu wouldn't have died." When I opened my eyes again, I saw Zhang Xianying, back when he was still a fatherless orphan, being bullied, and I chose to look the other way. My final memory from my past life was the excruciating pain of being pushed into traffic, crushed by dozens of cars, and teetering on the brink of death, gritting my teeth against the searing pain. I tackled Zhang Xianying to the ground and sank my teeth hard into his neck. "Then let's die together." When I opened my eyes again, the chaotic scene around me left me completely disoriented. I stood frozen for 2 seconds, until desperate cries for help snapped me back to reality. In the distance, the person being bullied was none other than Zhang Xianying, the boy with the mysterious father. He looked much more youthful and inexperienced than I remembered, wearing faded jeans. He was being drenched by orphanage troublemakers who held a hose directly over Zhang Xianying's head. Zhang Xianying curled into a ball, clutching his head while pleading incessantly, "Please, I'm begging you, stop this, please." It suddenly clicked. So it was that day, the day Zhang Xianying got bullied in our past life. I was the top dog at the orphanage. In our previous life, when Zhang Xianying was being bullied, I couldn't stand by and watch. I stepped in to mediate. And those troublemakers let him off out of respect for me. He acted as my sidekick for a few days before the Zhang family came to take him away. There was also a young girl who became my sidekick alongside him. After Zhang Xianying left, Chensu and I relied on each other for survival, living together until we were 16. My parents came to pick me up too. Chensu couldn't bear to see me go and handed me a piece of jade. "This means a lot to me. You must come visit me often, sis." I clutched the jade Buddha tightly and gave a solemn nod, but when I went back later, I never saw Chensu again. Little did I know, the next time I'd hear about Chensu was at my wedding with Zhang Xianying. She leaped from a high-rise, leaving behind a final message: "You promised you'd come back to marry me, so I've been waiting for you all this time." Zhang Xianying pinned all the blame on me, frantically waving my jade Buddha pendant in my face as he demanded to know how it ended up in my possession. He shoved me into the relentless flow of traffic, leaving me to be crushed beneath the wheels of dozens of vehicles. "You bitch, drop dead." My vision began to fade. The fall from heaven to hell happens in the blink of an eye. When I came to my senses, I walked right past Zhang Xianying being bullied without stopping. "Sister Wenyao." Chensu clung to me to stop me from leaving, pleading for Zhang Xianying. "Sister Wenyao, they all listen to you. Please save Xianying." Tears streamed down Chensu's face as she pleaded with me, her eyes brimming with genuine desperation, begging me to save Zhang Xianying. All the old grudges and fresh resentment surged to the surface in an instant. He stole from someone. A kid with such twisted morals deserves to be taught a lesson. I didn't even bat an eye, frankly. He's lucky I didn't kick him while he was down, sis. Xianying is innocent. Before Chensu could finish, I grabbed her by the hair and flung her toward Zhang Xianying as she let out a piercing shriek. "If you're so close, you should share everything, including the beating. That's true love." In her past life, it was Chensu's promiscuous lifestyle that gave her an STD. Thinking her life was over, she jumped from a high-rise, just to make Zhang Xianying live with guilt forever. Those two lunatics dragged me into their twisted drama, even putting my life on the line. Whether this is some afterlife hallucination or I've truly been reborn, it doesn't matter. Revenge comes first. Seeing that I had no intention of intervening, those people grew even more brazen in their actions. I turned my head and met Zhang Xianying's icy gaze. In my past life, when I returned to the orphanage, I never saw Chensu again. I asked around everywhere but couldn't find any news of her, missing her deeply. I started wearing the jade Buddha pendant around my neck every day. Later, my father brought me back to the compound, where I saw Zhang Xianying again. "Yang, you two actually stayed in the same orphanage for a while." Zhang Xianying's father patted his head and looked at me with kind, friendly eyes. Back then, when I looked at Zhang Xianying, there was a glimmer of hope in my eyes. I was hoping he would recognize me. Zhang Xianying was too young when he was taken away, and he had mostly forgotten what happened at the orphanage. On top of that, He had only stayed at the orphanage for a few days before being taken back. Zhang Xianying had almost no memory of the orphanage. I waited for Zhang Xianying to speak, feeling unexpectedly nervous, but at that moment, Zhang Xianying merely glanced at me indifferently before turning away without acknowledging me. It wasn't until she noticed the jade Buddha pendant around my neck that his attitude toward me shifted. He took me to movies, asked me out to lantern festivals, and showed me all the best food in Beijing. Everyone in his circle knew about me. They all saw how Zhang Xianying cherished me like a precious treasure. I thought he remembered those days in the orphanage when he was bullied, and that I was the one who saved him, offering a glimmer of warmth. But later, at our wedding, Jinsu suddenly showed up in a wedding dress, clutching a microphone and screaming at the top of her lungs, "Zhang Xianying, you promised you'd come back to marry me. That's why I've been waiting all this time." With that, he dropped the microphone, turned around, and ran towards the rooftop. Before any of us could react, he leaped off, ending his own life. After I died, perhaps due to the depth of my resentment, my soul did not immediately dissipate. My soul drifted in midair, watching Zhang Xianying clutch his neck, crawl painfully to my side, remove the jade Buddha from my neck, grip it tightly in his hand, then struggle over to Chinsu, holding her close in his arms before finally closing his eyes in peace. That's when I realized Zhang Xianying was only nice to me because of that jade Buddha pendant. The person he was actually looking for wasn't the brave soul who stood up for him when he was bullied, but the delicate flower who could only weep and play the victim. So I went back to the day Zhang Xianying got bullied, but this time, I chose to turn a blind eye. If what you're after is some fragile little wallflower, then sorry, this girl's too tough for your league. By the time I emerged from the shadowy corner, my friend Qin Su had already been waiting for me on the sports field for quite a while. "How did you get out of that place?" "Oh, I was around the corner roughing up a couple of guys." "Qin Su, you roughing up 2 people? Since when are you such a fighter?" Of course, I lifted my chin with an air of superiority. As Lu Sun once said, "If you think you can bully 2 people at once, you'd better make damn sure you can." Lu Sun actually said that. Feel free to look it up. I nodded with feigned seriousness. "Qin Su." As we headed toward the basketball court, I said to Qin Su, "Today, I'll show you how to take on 4 players single-handedly." As he spoke, Qin Su mimed a shooting motion. I was about to laugh at him when I literally bumped into Zhang Xianying. Zhang Xianying may look decent on the surface, but back when he first arrived in my previous life, he was genuinely someone who made my heart flutter. That was one of the reasons why I couldn't help but meddle when he was being bullied back then. But now, seeing him beaten to a bruised and swollen pulp, I'm seriously questioning my taste from my past life. "Wen Yao, I'll let it slide that you falsely accused me of stealing without any evidence, but Chinsu is innocent. Why would you bully her too? Go apologize to her." The sheer entitlement in his tone brooked no argument, like someone who'd held authority for far too long. These weren't words an 8-year-old Zhang Xianying should be capable of saying. Besides, at this point, he probably doesn't even know our names yet. A knowing smile crept across my face. So it turns out I'm not the only one who's been reborn. Zhang Xianying is in the same boat. This just keeps getting better, with fresh grievances piling onto old ones. I raised my hand and slapped Zhang Xianying across the face. Then I pulled out a tissue and meticulously wiped each finger that had touched him. "You'd better stay away from me, or I'll beat you up every time I see you." After we left, Qin Su kept stealing cautious glances at me. "Wen Yao, how about I find you a spiritual medium? Would you like to give it a try?" He wants to get me a fortune teller. He thinks I'm possessed. Well, it's true. I've always been a sucker for good looks. To be honest, during Zhang Xianying's first few days here, I did have his back as the group's big sister. But now, I'm a different person. I am Wen Yao, reborn. The Wen Yao who once protected Zhang Xianying is dead. Qin Su, the woman standing before you now is Neohuru Wen Yao. Qin Su, that very afternoon, he brought the shaman to see me. The shaman circled me a few times, then looked at Qin Su with an air of grave importance. I thought she had figured out I was a reincarnated soul, and felt a flicker of nervousness. The shaman finally spoke up. "You might have encountered something unclean. It needs to be resolved." Qin Su frowned. "I appreciate your help. How much will it cost?" The shaman replied, "We don't deal in money, only in fate." Catching on quickly, Qin Su asked, "How much fate will it take?" 1,800 yuan. Qin Su, it's just as well that she has this item. You may leave now. After seeing the shaman out, Qin Su cursed furiously. this world is full of swindlers. My heart sank. Chin Su, is our bond really not worth 1800 yuan? Yao Yao, that's too expensive, be reasonable, we can't afford it. I was speechless. Chin Su, and I were in the same class, in my past life. I never really got along with Chin Su. Later, when Zhang Xianying got bullied, she begged me to save him, and that's how the three of us forged a bond through shared adversity. In this life, since I never stepped in to rescue anyone, there was no chance for that camaraderie between Chin Su and me to develop. Chin Su was nowhere to be seen all day today. Chin Su's greatest pride was her stunning looks. Today, I got a few punches to the face for meddling in Zhang Xianying's business. I probably can't show my face in public now. In her previous life, Chin Su only intervened because she knew Zhang Xianying had to be someone wealthy or influential. After all, the clothes he wore when he first arrived at the institution were clearly expensive. As soon as Zhang Xianying arrived, Chin Su went out of her way to show him kindness, becoming a ray of light in his life. Young Master Zhang was personally dropped off at the orphanage by his own mother, who abandoned him while he was fully conscious. That's why Zhang Xianying always came across as somewhat aloof in his interactions with others. Just as Chin Su was beginning to find a place in Zhang Xianying's heart, his father showed up. All he left Chin Su was that worthless jade Buddha. Zhang Xianying was taken away by his family and for years never returned to the orphanage to see Chin Su. Seeing how worthless that trinket was, Chin Su decided to pass it on as a casual gesture of goodwill, giving me the jade Buddha when the Wen family came to pick me up. Little did anyone know, Zhang Xianying had a peculiar fondness for that jade Buddha. Whoever wore it around their neck would win his affection. Chin Su began spreading rumors everywhere that I was bullying children at the orphanage. With her hair still dripping from the water she'd poured on herself, she went to complain to the director. The director reluctantly called me into his office. Yao Yao, I've watched you grow up and I know you have a good heart. Is there some misunderstanding between you and Chin Su? I didn't splash her. I looked at the headmistress, this woman who had always taken such good care of me. In my past life, she had grieved for a long time after my passing. I believe you, the headmistress said gently, her gaze firm. That's why I think you should talk with Chin Su and clear up the misunderstanding between you. I nodded, putting on an innocent expression. But my specialty has always been saying one thing and doing another. 3. There's no way I'm having a chat with Chin Su. Stepping out of the dean's office, I spotted the delicate girl standing nearby and signaled with my eyes for her to follow. When we got to a place without surveillance cameras, I pulled her by the hair into the toilet. With one kick, I sent her sprawling beside the sink. Amid her piercing screams, I pushed her head into the sink and turned on the tap, letting the water pour down on her even more fiercely. Come on, sis, today I'll show you what bullying is. Don't think you can go around telling people I bullied you just by splashing some cold water on yourself. I think the beating you got last time was too lenient. Chin Su struggled desperately, gasping, when Yao, let go of me. Hearing her nearly suffocated gasps, I released my grip, staring at that innocent face. Bitterness welled up inside me. Go on then, flaunt that innocent look of yours, let the whole orphanage see, tell them how dad bullied you. After dealing with Chin Su, I stepped out of the restroom and saw Chin Su leaning lazily against the wall, waiting for me. Did you really bully Chin Su? Chin Su looked at me, his expression unreadable in the sunlight. That's not cool of you. Bullying is a team sport. You didn't even call out to me. Do you not consider me a friend, me? Unbelievable, just unbelievable. I've never once managed to figure out how Chin Su's mind works. Next time, this was personal. I'd just finished cleaning up. I looked up at Chin Su, confusion evident in my eyes. Chin Su, you'd think a delicate girl like Chin Su would bring out your protective instincts, wouldn't you? Why does it feel like Chin Su always has it out for Chin Su? People like that really get on my nerves. Chin Su adjusted his scene kid hairstyle, mumbling and whining all day. Can't string together 3 coherent sentences. I couldn't hold back a laugh. Chin Su's thought process is truly different from ordinary people. I fell silent, but Chin Su suddenly remarked, Chin Su's been spreading rumors everywhere that you bullied her. She definitely deserved that slap. Those words made my eyes well up despite my efforts to hold back. Chin Su always stands by my side unconditionally and trusts me without question. I haven't seen Chin Su since that incident in the restroom. I know Chin Su is brewing up something big. Zhang Xianying's father is about to come looking for him. In this lifetime, Zhang Xianying doted on Chin Su from their very first meeting. Unlike the previous life where she tried every trick in the book but still couldn't get him to take her with him when he left, I suppose when Zhang Xianying leaves this time, he'll probably take Chensu with him. I waited patiently for that day to arrive. Soon enough, the day came when Zhang Xianying's father came to pick him up and take him home. Zhang Xianying stood in the principal's office, lips pressed tightly together, saying nothing. The glamorous, well-dressed woman standing in front of Zhang Xianying's father wore an expression of utter impatience. If you don't want to go back, then just stay here. What a nuisance. Zhang Xianying was his father's illegitimate child. After Zhang Xianying's mother left him at the orphanage, she tipped off his father about it. The reason his father came so late to pick Zhang Xianying up was that he had to first calm his wife down and win her approval before daring to come get him, probably because in his previous life, his father treated him well, giving him the illusion that he actually mattered. He actually tried to use his refusal to return as leverage against his father, demanding to take Chensu along with him. Uncle Zhang and Aunt Zhang are very kind people. If Zhang Xianying had directly asked to bring Chensu home, they would have taken pity on her and adopted her, but Zhang Xianying had to go and threaten his own father. He still didn't understand his father. Uncle Zhang hated nothing more than being threatened. It wasn't like he was short on sons, he just didn't want his own child suffering out in the world. So when Zhang Xianying heard what Auntie Ruan said, he was completely thrown. Maybe it was because Auntie Ruan had been too soft-spoken and accommodating in their past life, which gave Zhang Xianying the nerve to act so recklessly. It's not that I don't want to go back, I just want to bring my playmate home with me. Uncle Zhang frowned. No, we don't know anything about this child's background. If their character turns out to be poor, going through the process to revoke the adoption later would be very troublesome. Aunt Ruan nodded in agreement. If you're willing to come back with us, we can start the adoption process right now and take you home. If not, we'll just go home now. With that, Aunt Ruan made as if to stand up and leave. Adoption. Zhang Xianying's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Aunt Ruan. In his previous life, although he was Uncle Zhang's illegitimate child, he had still been formally acknowledged and brought home, nothing like now, where he had to be recognized as an adopted son. Could it be that because of his rebirth, some details had changed? On the surface, Zhang Xianying may have been just an 8-year-old child, but deep down, he possessed the mind of a full-grown adult, and his thoughts moved with lightning speed. After just a moment's pause, Zhang Xianying slightly opened his mouth and said, Auntie, I am my father's biological son. How could I possibly be registered as an adopted child? An adopted child does not have an absolute right to inheritance. As Uncle Zhang's biological son, if Uncle Zhang and Aunt Ruan failed to allocate him a proper share of the estate, Zhang Xianying would have every right to take them to court. But if he were an adopted son, that would be a different story. If Zhang Xianying were to become an adopted son, it would mean that in this life, he would have to tread even more carefully than in his previous one to get everything he wanted. But after all, he was someone accustomed to being the chairman, used to being at the top. How could he possibly resign himself to living in such a dark, obscure corner? Originally, he had returned with the goal of quickly dealing with Uncle Zhang and Aunt Ruan's son, so he could become the Zhang family's sole young master as soon as possible. Once again reduced to living at the mercy of others as an adopted son, Zhang Xianying was naturally unwilling to accept his circumstances. His mind had long grown restless and unsettled. Auntie Ruan furrowed her brow, clearly taken aback that such a young child could harbor such complex thoughts. How we bring you home, that's entirely our decision to make. Aunt Ruan's voice carried a certain chill, not exactly the warm and approachable kind. Truth be told, Uncle Zhang was the one who'd wronged Aunt Ruan, so naturally he deferred to her in everything. Her word was his command. The moment Aunt Ruan finished speaking, Uncle Zhang chimed in. Your mother resorted to underhanded means to bring you into this world, and later deliberately revealed your whereabouts. If it weren't for your Aunt Ruan's kindness, she couldn't bear the thought of a child left to wander. I wouldn't have considered adopting you. If you truly don't wish to come with us, we won't force you. The tone in those words carried a clear threat. How could Zhang Xianying possibly refuse to go back with him? Ever since his rebirth, he'd been counting the days, wondering when his father would come to bring him home like in his previous life. In the end, Zhang Xianying went back with Uncle Zhang. After all, this isn't my past life. Before we got together, he was just an insignificant illegitimate child, hardly in any position to negotiate with Uncle Zhang. I deliberately positioned myself along the route Zhang Xianying had to take back to his dorm to pack his things. Chensu was with me too. Chensu gently tugged at Zhang Xianying's hand with a delicate, fragile demeanor, her eyes brimming with reluctance. Xianying, you must promise to visit me often, she pleaded softly. Then, to my surprise, Chensu fixed her gaze longingly on the jade Buddha pendant around Zhang Xianying's neck, her eyes filled with yearning. Could you give me something of yours to remember you by? She asked. Me? Chensu actually asked Zhang Xianying for a keepsake. Something's off about her. Could it be that Chensu has been reborn too? The three of us died on the same day, and now we've all been reborn together. Zhang Xianying took the jade Buddha pendant from around his neck and handed it to Chensu, gently reminding her, you must take good care of this and don't let anyone steal it. Yeah, that's right. In our past life, Chensu framed me, accusing me of stealing the jade Buddha. That's why Zhang Xianying harbored such intense hatred towards me. He believed I had a voice to clarify things, to tell him I wasn't Chensu, yet I deliberately remained silent. He resented me for stealing the jade Buddha he had given to Chensu, feeling I had stolen the love between them as well. But Zhang Xianying had no idea. I never stole anything from them. This jade Buddha was something Chensu looked down on and simply gave to me. And it's not like I was deliberately avoiding an explanation, back then. Zhang Xianying's words were so ambiguous, who could have guessed who he was actually looking for? The first time he saw me, his eyes lit up like he'd struck gold. Who the hell would have thought he wasn't staring at me, but at the jade Buddha hanging around my neck? What a pair of lunatics, dragging me into your mess for no reason. Watching Chensu nod with such solemnity, I couldn't help but let out a derisive chuckle. My laughter caught Uncle Zhang's attention. And Aunt Ruan also turned to look in our direction. Your Aunt Ruan and my mother grew up together as childhood friends. Since I'm the spitting image of how my mom looked as a child, Aunt Ruan was completely stunned when she saw me. AFO, let's take her home. She's the spitting image of little Yuan when she was a child. Uncle Zhang studied me with a scrutinizing gaze. You're right, she does bear some resemblance to old Wen. I'll call him right now to come verify this himself. I've known since my past life that I'm the mirror image of how my mother looked as a child, so in this life, to get home sooner, I deliberately positioned myself along Zhang Xianying's inevitable route back. The whole point was to catch Uncle Zhang's attention. In my previous life, I wasn't found by my parents until I turned 16, but in this life, from the very day I was reborn, I'd resolved to make sure I'd be seen when Zhang Xianying's father came to pick him up. I listened as Uncle Zhang spoke to my parents on the phone, his voice brimming with excitement. Old Wen, you need to come see this. I came to adopt a child and there's a little girl here who's the spitting image of Xiao Yuan when she was young. Come quick and see if it's Zhuzhu. I couldn't hear what my dad said to Uncle Zhang on the other end of the line, but after hanging up, Uncle Zhang started walking toward me. Uncle Zhang crouched down gently and asked me, Sweetie, do you remember what your name was before you came to the orphanage? I shook my head. It wasn't that I meant to hide anything, but since both Zhang Xianying and Chensu had likely been reborn, I couldn't let them catch on to anything unusual. After all, I still have a score to settle. We need to catch them off guard. If they catch on and become wary, my path to revenge won't be so smooth. I pretended to be shy, shrinking back a little, and glanced at Zhang Xianying standing behind Uncle Zhang before asking quietly, Uncle, are you here to adopt him? Uncle Zhang smiled warmly. Yes, but you look a lot like a friend of mine. Kid, they'll be here soon. Why don't you come with me to meet them? I pretended to think for a moment before nodding, my face lighting up with unrestrained joy. Really, that's wonderful. Someone actually wants me. Her words made Uncle Zhang and Auntie Ruan's hearts sink. After all, I'd been the family's treasured darling since birth. Hearing me say something so desperate as someone actually wants me, couldn't help but break their hearts. Aunt Ruan stepped forward, took my hand, and led me toward the principal's office. Zhang Xianying must have witnessed this scene, and it clearly struck a nerve. He actually stepped in to block Aunt Ruan's path and said, Auntie, don't be fooled by her innocent appearance. She's the toughest kid in our orphanage. She bullies the other children, and we're all scared of her. She's basically our ringleader. Aunt Ruan furrowed her brow slightly. As for Zhang Xianying's tattling, I wasn't the least bit worried. After all, I'm the legitimate daughter of the Wen family. Even if I were a troublemaker, they'd have to grit their teeth and acknowledge me. Chensu failed to notice Aunt Ruan's slight frown and chimed in with Zhang Xianying. Uncle, Auntie, don't be fooled by her. She often bullies us here. Just the other day, she dragged me into the restroom and hit me. As she spoke, Chensu rolled up her sleeve to show Aunt Ruan her injury, only to reveal that the wound had nearly healed. 5. I watched their antics coldly. Only after Chen Su had rolled up her sleeve did I turn to Aunt Ruan with a smile and say, "Auntie, I haven't bullied any classmates. Last time, this girl suddenly poured water on her own head and then falsely accused me of bullying her. I just taught her a little lesson." Auntie Ruan patted my head affectionately and nodded with a smile. "You did well, kiddo. When someone bullies you, you should always stand up for yourself. I'm different from Zhang Xianying. My status has destined me to be favored for life, at least for now. I'm still a child, whatever I do. They'll just see it as childish mischief. Plus, there's their guilt over losing me when I was young and not raising me themselves, which they blame for my strong-willed personality now. No matter what happens, they'd never pin the blame on me anyway. It's just a shame that even if Zhang Xianying got a second chance at life, he still wouldn't grasp this truth." I shot Zhang Xianying and Chen Su a smug, challenging look before following them to the dean's office. Since they'd decided to adopt Zhang Xianying, he naturally came along with us. He was quick to change how he addressed them during the walk. "Dad, what do you think of that girl we just met? How's her character? I want you to adopt her. Zhang Xianying has absolutely no manners. I can't fathom what I ever saw in him in my past life." Uncle Zhang was also getting annoyed by Zhang Xianying's words. He doesn't even use polite language when speaking to adults, and now he wants to adopt a girl he's only met once. Uncle Zhang looked impatient. He glanced at Zhang Xianying and said coolly, "Is it because you think she's pitiful, or because you're attracted to her looks?" That was a bit harsh. For an 8-year-old child, he probably doesn't even understand what attracted to her looks means. Unexpectedly, Aunt Ruan sneered after hearing Uncle Zhang's words. "No wonder they say he's your son. He's exactly like you." Although it was an accident, Uncle Zhang was the one who cheated first. Given his current position, he had no choice but to hold his tongue. Zhang Xianying chose to endure it quietly. Having lived a second life, he understood all too well how impatience could ruin grand plans. In his previous life, after killing me, he never intended to end his own life. He simply wanted to keep the money and cherish his memories of Chen Su, living out his days in lonely wealth. As if I'd let him have his way. If he wants me dead, he'll have to pay the price. Old Wen, Uncle Zhang's voice snapped me back to reality. Emerging from my memories, I saw my parents approaching and felt my eyes grow moist. My parents, I can't imagine how heartbroken they must have been in my previous life after I passed away. Uncle Zhang looked at my parents with solemn gravity. Our families lived across from each other in the same compound. When I was 2, my older brother accidentally lost sight of me, and they searched for years without ever finding me. By the time my mom and dad rushed to the scene, Uncle Zhang's family and I had already been waiting in the dean's office for quite some time. The moment my father saw me, he couldn't hold back his tears any longer. "It's Juju, I couldn't be mistaken. She's the spitting image of her mother." My mother also pulled me into a tight embrace, weeping uncontrollably. "Juju, I'm so sorry for all the hardship you've endured these years." Unlike Zhang Xianying, I was the apple of my family's eye from the moment I was born. My father gave me a name that couldn't be more straightforward, Wen Mingzhu, literally warm bright pearl. But then I got lost. When the orphanage director asked if I remembered my name, all I could mumble was Wen, left with no other choice. The director kept my surname and gave me a new name. In my previous life, I went by the name Wen Yao for 16 years. Even after my parents found me and brought me home, I never changed it back to the original. I remained Wen Yao. In this life, I returned to the Wen family ahead of time. When my father wanted to change my name back to the original one, I had no objections. Because of my appearance, my parents decided to bring me home even before the DNA test results came out. "Whether she is or isn't, we must take this child home. She looks so much like Juju did when she was little. Even if it's just to keep her memory alive for us, we absolutely must bring the child home to care for her." My father knew that ever since I went missing, my mother hadn't been able to sleep well day and night, and it had developed into neurasthenia. Even if I weren't the real Wen family heiress, he would still bring me home, if only to give my mother some psychological comfort. So no matter what, I'm going back to the Wen family. But whether Chen Su was just being dense or deliberately showing off, I couldn't tell. Just as my parents were about to finalize the adoption paperwork with the orphanage director, Chen Su suddenly piped up to my dad. "Sir, you seem like a kind man. Don't be fooled by Wen Yao. She's always scamming people and bullying other kids here. If you take her in, you'll regret it." Zhang Xianying actually chimed in too. "Mr. Wen, Susu is right. If you're looking to adopt a girl, she'd be a much better choice than Wen Yao. My father shot a surprised glance at Chen Su and Zhang Xianying. To his astonishment, they actually thought he was seriously considering their claims, and they piled it on, saying, "If you don't believe us, just ask around the entire orphanage. Wen Yao is the top dog here, nobody dares to cross her. You said her name is Wen Yao, you're telling me her surname is Wen." My dad always zeroes in on the strangest details. The director then gave Chen Su and Zhang Xianying an awkward glare before turning to my father with a smile. "When the volunteers found Yao Yao, she was only 2 years old," she explained. "We asked her name, and all she said was Wen, so I took the liberty of giving her the surname Wen. As everyone knows, the Wen family's daughter was also 2 years old when she went missing, with my face being the spitting image of my mother's. It was practically a foregone conclusion that I was the Wen family's long-lost daughter. As a result, my father formed a very poor impression of Chen Su and Zhang Xianying, who had just been badmouthing me. My father has always been fiercely protective of his own. If anyone dares speak ill of his daughter, he'll hold a grudge against them for life. Zhang Xianying shouldn't count on my father's support this time. It's just not happening. Honestly, I don't get why Zhang Xianying seems to have lost his common sense after getting a second chance at life. He knows perfectly well that I'm the true heiress of the Wen family, yet he badmouths me to my parents and pushes them to adopt Chen Su while abandoning me. Isn't he afraid my parents will resent him when they eventually uncover the truth? Or perhaps, once my parents adopt Chen Su, he has ways. He definitely has ways to ensure my parents never find out. 6. The thought that suddenly crossed my mind sent a chill down my spine. From our interactions in my past life, I knew Zhang Xianying all too well. He's perfectly capable of silencing me for good. I'll need to keep an eye on Zhang Xianying after we get back. I went back to my dorm to pack, and Qin Su came to see me off. I originally wanted my parents to adopt Qin Su along with me, but the guy refused. "Wen Yao, I don't like living under someone else's roof. If you truly care about me, come visit often." I know Qin Su values his freedom too much. I didn't push him, but made one last attempt. "I'll definitely transfer schools after going back. Why don't you transfer with me? We could be at the same school, and you could keep watching my back." "Qin Su, you still need me to watch your back. I could watch your back instead." I looked at Qin Su with an earnest expression, hope shining in my eyes. Apparently annoyed by my demeanor, Qin Su smacked me on the head and said, "We're about to start middle school. I'll study hard so we can get into the same school. Let's not trouble your parents with this." He never liked imposing on others. Knowing how stubborn Qin Su could be, I didn't press him further. I sighed and said, "Well, you better step up your game. I'm a pretty good student." "You know," Qin Su grinned and ruffled my hair, "go live your life when you get back. Don't miss me too much. I'll come find you." Qin Su really knows how to throw you off guard. I thought he wasn't one for sentimental gestures, but he ended up making me tear up. Seeing me on the verge of tears, Qin Su gave me a light smack on the head. "Cut it out with the waterworks. It's not like we'll never see each other again, but we won't be able to see each other every day like we do now." I'm feeling a bit down. I've been with Qin Su ever since I first came here. When I first arrived, I was just a kid. They all picked on me for being the new one and wouldn't play with me. Qin Su was the only one willing to keep me company. Back then, I was hiding alone in the corner of the playground slide, watching them pair up and play together while leaving me out. Only Qin Su noticed me. He walked over to me holding a worn-out ball and said, "Hey, what's your name?" The head of the orphanage named me Wen Yao. Qin Su nodded, seemed to think for a moment, then handed me the toy in his hand. "I'm Qin Su. Here, you can have this to play with." Then, as if feeling reluctant, he added, "It's my favorite, don't lose it." I wiped away my tears and smiled, reaching out to take the little ball. "When my parents find me, I'll get you a new one. I may be young, but I'm not stupid. I remember my family was wealthy, and I remember how much my parents adored me." That was enough. The director could tell from my clothes that I came from a wealthy family, so she gave me extra attention. Not that she was being snobbish, she just didn't want to risk any negligence, in case my family found me and held her accountable later. In my past life, I waited for 16 long years. It wasn't until I had endured all kinds of hardships in life that my family finally found me. As for Qin Su, he passed away when I was 15 because he had cancer and couldn't afford the treatment. In this life, I've been given a second chance. I planned early on to reunite with my parents, saved up my money, and bought Qin Su a small basketball well in advance. "Qin Su, this is for you. My word is my bond. This time around, I'm going to help Chinsu take preventive measures early so cancer doesn't claim him. You actually bought it. Chinsu was stunned. He never expected me to give him a basketball, so you do remember after all. They say 3-year-olds don't retain memories, but I'll never forget that summer afternoon, how a boy wove through the crowd, noticed lonely little me crouched in the corner, and handed me his beloved basketball. Forever etched in my mind are that golden summer day, the brilliant sunlight, and Chinsu's shy, gentle smile. Of course I remember. My memory is absolutely unbeatable, okay. Mirroring Chinsu's earlier gesture, I reached out and ruffled his hair. It suddenly occurred to me that in my previous life, Chinsu had succumbed to brain cancer. If we start checkups now and catch it early for treatment, I wonder if that would make a difference. With that thought, my gaze toward Chinsu suddenly turned solemn. Chinsu, even if you don't want my parents to adopt you, you must accept my personal support. At the very least, I'll arrange an annual health checkup for you. No. Make that every 6 months. Chinsu, wait, that guardian spirit of yours is still hanging around. What kind of sensible person gets a physical every 6 months? Me. You do realize we're talking about sensible people here. Are you one? Chinsu was speechless. That's actually hard to argue with. Seeing Chinsu lost for words, I finally smiled in relief. So don't be stubborn, Chinsu. Get a checkup every 6 months. For me. I paused, then added with a sly grin, and Chinsu. I'm not funding you out of the goodness of my heart. I'll need you to do things for me. I still remember, in my past life, my brother was utterly against me coming home. He even went so far as to forge a fake DNA test to keep me out. But since I was already quite grown by then, I could see right through my brother's intentions, which is why I secretly took some countermeasures. I never understood why my brother resented my return so much. I used to wonder if it was because I was already 16 when I came back, and he had gone abroad for studies by then. We barely spent any time together, so there was no real bond between us. But ever since I returned this time, I've been mulling over events from my past life and started noticing so many inconsistencies. If it were just a lack of affection, surely my brother wouldn't have gone so far as to tamper with my DNA. Wouldn't it be better to just keep him as a mascot? So my brother must have some other reason. When I go back this time, I really need to be careful around my brother. Even at the age of 10 in his previous life, Chinsu had already shown glimpses of his budding talent as a computer genius. It's a shame he passed away at just 15, otherwise, he would have become a rising star in the computer industry, even after living 2 lifetimes. I still don't know who Chinsu's parents were. Just how brilliant must his parents have been to raise such an exceptional child? I looked at Chinsu, and my eyes unconsciously revealed pity. Seeing my gaze fixed on him, Chinsu immediately crossed his arms over his chest. Wen Yao, what are you up to? Nothing much. I just want to groom you to serve my purposes. Chinsu, you're just a little kid. What do you think you're doing? I'm fighting my brother for the family inheritance. I flashed my 2 gleaming front teeth at Chinsu and said, when I get my hands on it, I'll split it with you. Chinsu, Wen Yao, what other surprises do you have that I don't know about? You're still just a kid, thinking about fighting for the family inheritance. You've been away from home for years. Focus on reconnecting with your family first instead of these underhanded schemes. Remember how the headmaster taught us. 7. Chinsu was earnestly lecturing me, and seeing the serious look on his face, I felt a warmth in my heart. Wen Yao, remember you represent our institute when you go out there. Don't let our dean down, but if anyone dares bully you, don't just take it. If you can't handle them alone, come back for reinforcements. I'll always have your back, so will we. The other children chimed in, tumbling into the room with a clatter. No one even noticed when they had arrived. Their eyes were red-rimmed, faces etched with reluctance to part. When I first arrived, they were hesitant to include me, but as time passed, Chinsu helped me blend into the group, and our bond grew steadily stronger. To this day, they still see me as their big sister and leader. Watching them, a wave of warmth washed over my heart. In my previous life, by the time I left, many of them had already been adopted or reunited with their biological parents, but we never lost touch with each other afterwards. They even attended my wedding with Zhang Xianying, yet no one expected Chinsu to show up out of nowhere. Or for Zhang Xianying to go berserk and shove me into oncoming traffic. All I know is that after I died, Zhang Xianying still had a chance to survive, but my friends, determined to avenge me, deliberately stalled for time and coldly watched him bleed out. My friends had already settled the score from my past life for me, just like in my previous life. After my parents brought me home, The DNA test results between us hadn't come back yet. My brother seems to have a natural animosity towards me. He looked at me with utter contempt in his eyes. The test results aren't back yet. We don't even know if you're really my parents' child. Just you wait. I'll make sure you're kicked out of this house sooner or later. The same thing happened in my previous life. When my parents brought me home, my brother made his hostility toward me painfully obvious, especially since my parents felt guilty about the years they'd missed with me. They treated me even better, which only made my brother feel more resentful. Given my brother's nature in this lifetime, he'll probably tamper with the DNA evidence again. These past few days, I've noticed him making frequent trips to the Zhang residence. Ever since Zhang Xianying returned, he's been deliberately cozying up to him to dig for information about my time at the orphanage. Who knows what deal he struck with Zhang Xianying? He's actually willing to trade Chen Su for me. Despite his young age, Zhang Xianying was mature at heart, even older than Wen Qingyan. Hiding behind a child's innocent facade, he had Wen Qingyan wrapped around his finger. Zhang Xianying told Wen Qingyan that I bullied other kids at the orphanage and had a terrible reputation. Wen Qingyan, being naive, actually fell for Zhang Xianying's lies. Zhang Xianying was even more naive, thinking that aligning with Wen Qingyan in this lifetime would be far more useful than associating with me. So he consistently gave me the cold shoulder. In our previous life, Zhang Xianying was actually quite aloof by nature. He only groveled before me to secure the Wen family's backing. Now when we dine at the Zhang residence, he barely acknowledges my presence. Yet with Wen Qingwan, it's all dear brother this and dear brother that. Standing off to the side, I felt waves of awkwardness wash over me. It was Zhang Qingxian again, bringing drinks over to me. You must be Zhu. Welcome home. Zhang Qingxian had always been a gentle soul, yet in my past life, this kind-hearted brother was outmaneuvered by Zhang Xianying and met a tragic end. Looking at Zhang Qingxian again, I pushed down my guilt, accepted the drink from his hand with a smile, and clinked my glass against his. Thank you, brother Qingxian. As I spoke, I cast a wary glance toward Wen Qingwan and Zhang Xianying, a flicker of malice in my eyes. Brother, I heard from Auntie Ruan that you have a habit of drinking milk before bed, but just the other day, the director at our orphanage taught us that having milk before sleep puts extra strain on the kidneys. It's not good for you. Maybe you could switch to having a glass in the morning instead. Zhang Qingxian's eyes flickered. He must have remembered that Zhang Xianying had been bringing him a glass of milk to his room every night since returning home. Zhang Xianying and I grew up in the same orphanage. Whatever I know, he definitely knows too. So if he's fully aware that drinking milk before bed is unhealthy, why does he insist on delivering it every single night? What's his real agenda? Unlike Wen Qingwan, Zhang Qingxian has always been extremely meticulous. I merely mentioned it in passing, yet he took it to heart immediately. Alright, Zhu, I understand now. Thank you for the reminder, sweetheart. Zhang Qingxian ruffled my hair and spoke to me with a smile, but was interrupted when Zhang Xianying walked over. Brother, don't talk to her. She's been bullying others since her days at the orphanage. She's malicious at heart. Don't be fooled by her. Zhang Xianying stood by Zhang Qingxian's side like a brave little warrior, shielding him protectively. Watching them, I was genuinely moved by the profound bond between the two brothers. So I spoke up. Zhang Xianying, you keep accusing me of bullying you all day long. I can't just let you slander me for nothing, can I? How about I give you a taste of what it feels like to get slapped across the face? Since you're already calling me a bully anyway, if I don't actually bully you a little, I'd be doing a disservice to all the rumors you've spread about me. With that, I slapped Zhang Xianying across the face. Zhang Xianying looked stunned, as if he hadn't expected me to actually hit him. But my brother reacted quickly, shoving me aside. Wen Mingzhu, you've really picked up bad habits out there. Is this how you treat your friend? Who told you he's my friend? I stared at my brother, refusing to back down. My brother mistook my smile for foolishness and tried to pin the blame on me. And another thing, brother, when someone slanders your own sister, you don't stand up for her, but when she defends herself, you suddenly jump in to criticize me. Wen Qingwan, do mom and dad know this is how you treat your sister? Our parents had some business to attend to and couldn't make it, so Wen Qingwan and I arrived at the Zhang residence first. Wen Qingyan grew even more worked up when I mentioned our parents. Wen Mingzhu, how dare you bring up mom and dad? If they found out you'd been bullying classmates, they'd discipline you first. With our parents away, as your older brother, I'll take it upon myself to teach you a lesson in their place. I doubt you have the right to lecture me. I let out a cold laugh. showing no regard for the fact that Wen Qingyan was my brother, let alone any respect for him, in my past life, because when Qingguan disliked me, I tiptoed around him every day trying to win his favor. To ensure he got proper nutrition, I'd cook breakfast at home every morning and deliver it to his office since he always left for work without eating. Not only was he ungrateful, often tossing my homemade meals straight into the trash, but when Zhang Xianying pushed me into traffic, he deliberately blocked our parents' view, cutting off my only chance at survival. Back then, he put on an act of devastating grief in front of our parents, but late at night, he secretly burned all evidence of his communications with Chen Su. That's right. When Qingguan had a hand in helping Chen Su track down mine and Zhang Xianying's wedding. 8. I won't just settle the score with Zhang Xianying and Chen Su, I'll also make Wen Qingguan pay for every ounce of pain he inflicted on me. Wen Qingguan clearly never expected a kid like me to challenge him publicly. His face instantly turned ashen with rage. He assumed my youth meant I was naive. He actually thought I wouldn't fight back. Wen Mingzhu, don't think you can get away with anything just because mom and dad are doting on you right now. Brother, are you defending Chen Yao so fiercely because Chen Su is your girlfriend? I looked up, blinking my innocent eyes at Wen Qingguan. He was momentarily speechless, while murmurs began to ripple through the crowd around us. What nonsense are you talking? My brother's face turned pale. Don't make baseless accusations without evidence. So you do know better than to make unfounded claims without proof. I let out a cold laugh, staring at my brother with pure mockery in my eyes. When you joined the others in falsely accusing me earlier, I thought you didn't understand the concept of not making unsubstantiated claims. Wen Qingguan was caught completely off guard by my false accusation, his face turning ashen with shock and anger. That's when my parents showed up. By the time they arrived, they'd already heard all the gossip swirling around outside. Walking in now and seeing Wen Qingguan and me squared off against each other, siblings acting like mortal enemies, a flicker of sorrow passed through my mother's eyes. Remembering how my mother had always cherished me in my past life, my heart softened. I stepped forward and took her arm. Mom, I don't know how I offended Xianying, but he's been telling everyone that I bullied. I paused mid-sentence, glancing at Zhang Xianying before letting my words trail off. Uncle Zhang's expression was beginning to show clear discomfort. After all, my father and Zhang Xianying's had been friends for years. I was the legitimate daughter of the Wen family, while Zhang Xianying was nothing but the Zhang's unwelcome bastard son. It's not worth offending the Wen family's beloved princess over some illegitimate child who can't even be acknowledged publicly. So when Zhang Xianying's father noticed my hesitation, he patted my head and said gently, Zhu. Just tell uncle whatever's on your mind. I'll make sure you're treated fairly. Those were exactly the words I'd been waiting to hear. Does brother Xianying dislike me because I saw him being bullied before but didn't intervene? Is that why he's joining others and picking on me now? Uncle Zhang looked rather awkward. Xianying, did anyone bully you at the orphanage? My father also looked embarrassed. Zhu, why didn't you help Xianying? Wen Qingguan let out a cold laugh. Wen Mingzhu has always been a thoroughly selfish and calculating person. There's no way she'd ever lift a finger for someone else. Zhang Xianying glanced at me, his eyes filled with deep affection, looking at me as if all past grievances were forgotten. He said, Yao, I don't mind, brother Xianying, doesn't the person you stole from care at all? I looked up at Zhang Xianying with innocent eyes. Actually, Zhang Xianying never stole anything, he was framed by those people. To be precise, Chen Su set him up so she'd have an excuse to play the hero and rescue him. The pity is, Zhang Xianying had no idea about this matter from start to finish. What a poor fool. When I accused Zhang Xianying of stealing, both his father and Wen Qingguan couldn't hide their discomfort. Xianying, how could you steal? Uncle Zhang was about to slap Zhang Xianying across the face. It was clear that Zhang Xianying's father was restraining himself with great effort. A faint, elegant curve lifted the corner of my lips. Zhang Xianying shot me a venomous glare. All his efforts to play the role of a well-behaved child these past days were shattered by my single remark. Though Zhang Xianying clearly hadn't stolen anything, the venomous glare he shot me spoke volumes about his guilty conscience. No one was blind to Zhang Xianying's recent behavior. We all saw it clearly. Zhang Xianying's father had already concluded that his son was indeed the thief. Zhang Xianying's father raised his hand and struck him. How dare you be so useless? How dare you steal? The onlookers quickly stepped in to stop him, saying, he's still just a child. Besides, growing up in that kind of environment, it's no surprise he wasn't raised right. It's not too late to bring him home and teach him properly. Truth be told, none of them actually wanted to intervene. They were only putting on a show because they wanted to witness the Zhang family's humiliation. They had to do something, or else they might get chased away. Zhang Xianying buried his face in a relative's embrace, head bowed, with disheveled hair obscuring his eyes and concealing any trace of emotion. With my back turned to everyone, I let out a cold laugh and said calmly, "Matron did an excellent job raising us. We've always been united." Elder brother Xianying came later. "And his upbringing went wrong. You can't blame that on Matron." Those words immediately drew the attention of everyone around. Someone in the crowd spoke up, that when girl truly values loyalty and righteousness, she's still standing up for her matron. Exactly, a girl with such strong loyalty and principles doesn't seem like someone who'd bully others. What's wrong with the Wen family's eldest son? This is his own sister we're talking about. Yet he chooses to trust an outsider over her. Could that girl really be the Wen family's eldest son's girlfriend? No way, she's so young, practically the same age as his sister. How could the Wen family's eldest son even consider that? Does the eldest son of the Wen family have some peculiar preferences? The expressions of those around instantly shifted as they glanced at Wen Qingwan. My parents naturally overheard the murmurs from the crowd. I curled the corner of my lips into a faint smile. Wen Qingwan hardly ever hides anything from me. He went to the orphanage to find Chen Su, conspired with her, and took a strand of her hair. That's when I knew he wanted to swap my identity with Chen Su's. However, I was quite popular at the orphanage. Someone spotted Wen Qingwan visiting the orphanage to find Chen Su and secretly took photos. Wen Jia, this person actually bears a resemblance to you. He was just being nosy, but ended up capturing crucial information for me. I immediately contacted Chen Su and had him keep an eye on both of them. Chen Su is a natural-born detective. He quickly captured footage of Wen Qingwan and Chen Su going to the hospital, so I casually showed the video to my mom and asked with feigned innocence, "Mom, is brother sick? Why did he go to the hospital? He seems quite familiar with my good friend from the orphanage." My mom's face instantly darkened. "I'm stepping out for a bit, in fact." She went out to call the DNA testing center and requested an expedited processing of the DNA results. After my mom left, my dad, in a fit of rage, slapped Wen Qingwan across the face. "You ungrateful wretch, she's your own sister. It was because of you that she went missing all those years ago. Now that we've finally found her, what more do you think you're doing? Someone is slandering your sister, and you didn't even stand up for her. Tell me the truth, what exactly is your relationship with this girl?" 9. Zhang Xianying's father also recognized the girl at that moment. She was the one Zhang Xianying insisted on bringing along when he was picked up. At this, Zhang Xianying's father's expression darkened. A girl who gets two young masters from Beijing's elite circles into trouble, even if she's not at fault, is bound to rub people the wrong way. And Chen Su was never exactly a saint to begin with. Chen Su never understood the saying, "A man's wealth is his own ruin," by provoking greed. Even then, she stood stubbornly behind Zhang Xianying, refusing to admit any wrongdoing. When my father questioned Wen Qingwan about his relationship with her, she even stepped forward to explain, "Uncle, Qingwan is just helping me find my birth parents. Please don't misunderstand." Just then, my mother walked in from outside. She saw Chen Su with her head bowed, putting on an innocent face, but the light cast on her profile gave her a strikingly fragile appearance. Over the years, as my father's network expanded and my grandfather gradually stepped back, my dad began venturing into the business world. Our family's influence in Beijing soared to its peak, and many young women would secretly flirt with him, trying to seduce him. So when Chen Su put on that act, my mother's resentment only grew stronger in that moment. "Are we helping you find your birth parents? Or are we quietly making you the daughter of me and your uncle Wen without anyone knowing?" The cold smile in my mother's eyes became even more telling, and the glances from those around us toward her and my brother grew increasingly suggestive. My brother's face was starting to fall. My dad glanced at my brother and knew that whatever phone call mom had just stepped out to make, she must have found something out. Only my brother and Chen Su seemed genuinely naive, completely unaware of just how capable my parents were. They actually thought they'd covered their tracks perfectly, Chen Su especially, still wearing an innocent expression. She looked at my dad and said, "Uncle, you've got it all wrong." My mom, it was clearly my mom who said it, but Chen Su ended up explaining it to my dad. "And you still claim you weren't trying to flirt? Who would believe that? After all these years of navigating life's challenges, how could my father not see through Chen Su's intentions?" My father stepped behind my mother and said, "If your aunt is saying this, she must have evidence, she's just sparing your feelings because you're still young." He sounded so righteous and solemn, I almost burst out laughing. Seeing Chen Su's disgusted expression and my brother's ashen face lifted my spirits considerably. My brother's ulterior motives were written all over his face. His gaze toward me grew increasingly sinister. I wasn't having any of it. So I confronted him right in front of our parents. "Brother, why are you looking at me like that?" My father kicked my brother and snapped, "Wen Cheng Yuan, I'm warning you, if you dare scheme again, I'll send you straight to the orphanage." My father is a man of his word. That finally got my brother to calm down, but he grew increasingly close to Zhang Xianying. Time flew by, and a decade passed just like that. Zhang Xianying began supporting Chen Su from the moment he returned. Although he was an illegitimate child, the Zhang family never treated him poorly when it came to money. Aunt Ruan's son was mild-mannered and knew Zhang Xianying posed no threat to his status, so he naturally didn't pay him much attention. Moreover, in the 4th year after Zhang Xianying's return, Zhang Qingxian went abroad. He is 8 years older than us. In our senior year of high school, which is this year, Zhang Qingxian returned to the country. On his way back, he was involved in a car accident that left him with both legs broken. From then on, it was as if he had become a completely different person. His temper turned volatile, and his once promising future was utterly ruined. Because Zhang Xianying was with me, he became connected to our Wen family, and his status skyrocketed from then on, eventually becoming the heir of the Zhang family. Aunt Ruan, such an elegant woman, also became deeply melancholic because of Zhang Qingxian. Later, during another episode of madness, Zhang Qingxian accidentally harmed Aunt Ruan. After regaining his senses, he couldn't bear the fact that he had hurt his own mother. Overwhelmed by the shock, he leaped from a tall building, ending his own life. After her son's death, Aunt Ruan couldn't bear the pain of longing and ended up taking her own life with medication. It wasn't until much later that I discovered Zhang Xianying was the one who orchestrated the car accident. Zhang Qingxian's mental instability was also due to Zhang Xianying drugging his daily milk. After I found out, Zhang Xianying begged me through tears and sobs not to tell anyone, saying it would ruin his life. I never told anyone, but because of this, I've always carried a sense of guilt toward them. I did the math. Zhang Qingxian should be back soon. Auntie Ruan, when is Qingxian getting back? I brought some pastries over to Auntie Ruan and casually asked her, "Isn't Qingxian due back soon? I thought it was supposed to be around now." Aunt Ruan nodded gently. "His flight will probably land around 11. He deliberately didn't give us the exact time because he didn't want your Uncle Zhang and me to pick him up." I snuggled into Aunt Ruan's arms and said pleadingly, "But I really want to go pick up Brother Qingxian." I even managed to squeeze out a few tears as I continued, "Aunt Ruan, you know how distant my own brother is with me. But Brother Qingxian has always been so kind to me. I haven't seen him in years, and I miss him terribly." Aunt Ruan smiled and patted my head affectionately. "Our little Pearl wants to welcome Brother Qingxian home. I'll make sure to tell him that." Auntie Ruan wasn't the least bit surprised that I wanted to pick up Zhang Qingxian. In this lifetime, I deliberately grew close to Zhang Qingxian right after returning. At first, it was to make up for the mistakes I'd made in my previous life. But as we spent more time together, I genuinely grew fond of him. He truly treated me better than my own brother. We often played together as children, and I always looked forward to him picking me up from school. I even introduced Qin Su to him. This time around, since Zhang Qingxian and Qin Su met early on, and with Qin Su's talent for computers combined with Zhang Qingxian's vision, Zhang started an online company much sooner in this life. The business has been doing quite well. I smiled and nodded at Aunt Ruan, then ran into Zhang Xianying returning from outside as I was leaving the Zhang residence. Zhang Xianying's gaze at me was inscrutable. I wondered if the changes in me over the years had made Zhang Xianying realize that I was also reborn. Only during the opening of Zhang Qingxian's company did Zhang Xianying try to sound me out, but I didn't give anything away, and he didn't seem to suspect anything after that. After a brief encounter with Zhang Xianying, I was about to leave. Unexpectedly, Zhang Xianying grabbed my arm. "Wen Yao, I'm warning you, stop bullying Xu at school." Over the years, Zhang Xianying had been supporting Chen Su financially, but her academic performance never improved enough to get into the same school as us. Although the Zhang family wouldn't shortchange Zhang Xianying financially, Uncle Zhang is no fool when it comes to money. They certainly wouldn't pour a fortune into Zhang Xianying's pursuit of some girl. Nor did he have enough money to spoil Chen Su lavishly, let alone afford her tuition at our school. 10. This year, my brother took over the company and finally had some cash to throw around, having secretly backed Zhang Xianying in the family inheritance battle all these years. He now used his newfound power and wealth to help bring Chen Su to our school. After all, if there's one thing my brother never passes up, it's an opportunity to make my life difficult. The moment Chen Su arrived at our school, her first order of business was to spread rumors about me bullying her back at the orphanage. When Chinsa stood up for me, she twisted his words with that deceitful tongue of hers, painting him as my accomplice. I've never been one to indulge people's nonsense. Since she accused me of bullying, I decided to make it a reality. Every time she came near me, I'd give her a beating. My guess is Chen Su went running to Zhang Xianying to tattle on me again. I have no idea where Zhang Xianying gets his confidence, thinking I'm head over heels for him. He always speaks to me in a commanding tone. I often wonder why I ever put up with his arrogance. I broke free from his grip and said defiantly, "Remember what I told you, I'll beat you two up every time I see you." I waved my hand as I spoke. For instance, right now my hand is itching to make contact with your face. With those words, I slapped him without hesitation. Mind your own business, or you'll get more of the same. Auntie Ruan simply pretended not to see, furious that Auntie Ruan hadn't interfered. Zhang Xianying shot her a venomous glare. Looking into Zhang Xianying's eyes, I was suddenly reminded of a venomous snake's gaze. Yes, exactly, Zhang Xianying is like a venomous snake, dangerously circling around us, hissing in our direction. The way he looked at Aunt Ruan seemed to say, "You won't live much longer. Sooner or later, you'll fall into my hands." I narrowed my eyes, gave Zhang Xianying a meaningful look, and said coolly, "A good dog doesn't block the path, move aside." Zhang Xianying was clearly taken aback by my vulgarity. After a moment's pause, he stammered, "Wen Yao, how could you? My name is Wen Mingzhu, not Wen Yao." Before Zhang Xianying could finish, I cut him off impatiently with a mocking smile. "Zhang Xianying, I've noticed you're always living in the past." There was a double meaning in my words, but Zhang Xianying didn't catch it. I shoved him aside and headed to school. There's a physics competition coming up in a couple of days. I want to seize this opportunity to aim for first place and secure that direct admission spot to Tsinghua University. On my way to school, I happened to run into Chinsa. "Zhu, I need to talk to you about something." When Chinsa saw me, he immediately pulled me aside with a somewhat grave expression on his face. "You should keep a close eye on your brother lately. It seems he might try to drug you to prevent you from participating in the upcoming physics competition." Chinsa paused, glancing at me with a hint of pity in his eyes. "And one more thing, Zhu, your brother appears to be scheming to marry you off to some old man for an arranged marriage." "Me? Even if he wants to sell me off to some old man, he'd need our parents' approval." "Unless our parents." "Not at all. Your aunt and uncle actually care about you a great deal." Chinsa sighed. "He planned to drug you behind your parents' backs. Once you and that old man became an established fact, he figured your parents would have no choice but to accept it." "How do you know all this in such detail?" I frowned as Chinsa handed me his phone. I hacked into Wen Qingwan's phone. All his chat history with Zhang Xianying is right here. If I don't retaliate, they'll think I'm a pushover. I let out a cold laugh as I carefully scrolled through Wen Qingwan and Zhang Xianying's chat history. "Gotta admit though, your sister's got a killer body. Since we've already drugged her, why not let me have a taste before selling her to that old man?" "That's some dangerous thinking you've got there." Just a few words from them, and I already wanted to tear Zhang Xianying and Wen Qingwan to pieces. In my past life, whenever Zhang Xianying saw me, he couldn't wait to get me into bed. I thought it was love, but now I realize he was just lusting after my body. What a wolf in sheep's clothing. I let out a cold laugh, put away my phone, and tossed it to Chinsu. "Chinsu, put that clever little brain of yours to work. How do we get our revenge?" Chinsu sneered. "Since he's so hungry, let's give him something to chew on. If they're so close they're willing to share a woman, why not let them share their favorite?" "Are you suggesting we use Chinsu to take my place?" I frowned, but Chinsu wasn't involved in this. As much as I dislike her, I don't want to drag her into this kind of revenge. As women, I understand the inequalities we face in this era. Chinsu wasn't involved. Chinsu tapped on his phone and tossed it to me with a cold laugh. "Zhu, you're still too kind-hearted, always refusing to think the worst of people. See for yourself." Chinsu handed me the chat logs he had pulled up, conversations between Zhang Xianying and Chinsu. "Brother Xianying, after marrying sister Wen Yao off to that CEO Chen, Will she never show up at our school again? I'm really scared. Sister Wen Yao is always bullying me. Don't be afraid, Su. It's my fault for not protecting you well enough. Once we send that bitch Wen Yao to CEO Chen's bed, I promise she'll never appear in front of you again, sending her to Mr. Chen's place is really letting me off easy. I let out a cold laugh and continued watching their nauseating display. Brother Xianying, when Qingwan has been giving me these increasingly sleazy looks lately, that disgusting old man makes my skin crawl, but I still have to suck up to him or I won't survive at this school. Hang in there, my dear. Zhang Qingxian is returning soon. Once I deal with him and become my father's only son, the entire Zhang family fortune will be mine. Then you won't have to flatter that old man Wen Qingwan anymore. Alright, Xianying, I'll be waiting for you. Yes, once I secure the Zhang family shares, we'll get engaged. Xianying, do you truly wish to marry me? Darling, you're the most precious treasure in my world. Only someone like you could ever be worthy of me. Zhang Xianying's narcissism is making me sick to my stomach. As if she's the only one good enough for him. Give me a break. It's not like everyone's lining up to be with him. The level of narcissism is just off the charts. I handed my phone to Qin Su, who tapped a few times and said, "These are Qin Su's chat logs with your brother." When I took it back to look, I realized the world had gone completely mad, twisted into something I no longer recognized. Her chat history with my brother was even more insane. As someone who'd lived a full life before being reborn at 18, reading it made my heart race and cheeks flush all over again. 11. Brother Qingguan, I wish I could be with you right now. Zhang Xianying is completely useless, not nearly as impressive as you are, you little minx. Only when Zhang Xianying can't satisfy you do you remember me. Hold on a bit longer. Our Wen family still needs the Zhang family's support. I've never gotten along with Zhang Qingxian. If the Zhang family falls into his hands, he might not cooperate with us. I'll be good. I'll obediently be your little spy. Brother Qingguan, will you come tonight? What's wrong? Can't hold back anymore. I miss the warmth of Brother Qingguan's embrace. Every time I think of him, I feel the urge to take a shower. Hold on, I'll be right there. I'm absolutely speechless. This Qin Su really leaves no one untouched. Who would have thought she'd be so popular? No wonder she ended up with that disease in her past life. She's practically accepting anyone who comes her way. I handed the phone to Qin Su and raised an eyebrow, saying, "Hack into Qin Su's phone for me. I bet there are more than just these two men." Qin Su looked utterly bewildered. Who else could she possibly be with besides those two? From Qin Su's perspective, Qin Su was clearly trying to gain advantages from these two men. Since the Wen family was wealthier than the Zhangs, Qin Su would never let go of such a lucrative catch like Wen Qingguan. Yet Qin Su also knew Wen Qingguan would never marry her, so she'd never release her grip on Zhang Xianying, her reliable fallback option. Apart from Wen Qingguan and Zhang Xianying, Qin Su shouldn't have any need for others, nor should he have any contact with anyone else, but seeing is believing. And what I saw was shocking. Only after Qin Su hacked into Qin Su's phone did he realize how wild Qin Su's lifestyle really was. Beyond matters of interest, Qin Su's purely physical needs were indeed on the higher side. The chat logs inside were even more dizzying to look through, along with some videos of them getting intimate. And there were some even wilder ones that were downright unwatchable. Qin Su held the phone, hesitating a bit. Zhu, I think maybe you shouldn't look at this. Watching Qin Su turn red in the face, I couldn't help but find it amusing. I've lived long enough. There's nothing I haven't seen. It's fine. I'll just take a quick look so we can move on to the next round of payback. Qin Su sighed, glanced at me with reddened eyes, and handed me his phone. Go ahead. I'm going to step aside for a smoke. Qin Su seemed rather shy, almost embarrassed to be standing next to me. I watched Qin Su hurry away with amusement, shaking my head and smiling. I picked up my phone and started checking it. Damn, after reading that, all I could say was holy crap, these people really know how to party. I put away my phone and went straight to find Qin Su. Qin Su, go find the people who made those videos with Qin Su. Tell them she might have that kind of disease and suggest they get themselves checked. If I'm not mistaken, in my previous life around this time, Qin Su had already contracted the disease but just didn't know it yet. Otherwise, she wouldn't have reached the terminal stage with no cure possible by the time of my wedding with Zhang Xianying. This disease is manageable in its early stages. Even if not well controlled, it takes considerable time to progress to the terminal phase, at least 10 years, I'd say. So, based on the speculation from the previous life, it seems that in this life, Qin Su has already fallen ill. Sure enough, Chen Su only had to do a little digging and drop a few hints to those who had been involved with Chen Su, and they immediately panicked and rushed to the hospital for checkups. Within just a few days, the news that Chen Su was carrying the disease had spread like wildfire throughout their social circle. That day, as I was lounging at home watching TV and sipping on a drink as usual, I saw Wen Qingwan, who should have been at work, suddenly come home, looking absolutely furious. "What are you staring at? Have you finished reviewing your lessons? Do you think you'll get into a good university by sitting here watching TV?" When Qingwan started picking on me the moment he got home, I knew he was in a bad mood, though I inwardly sneered at his hypocrisy. Having already plotted to drug me and hand me over to some old man, he still had the nerve to scold me for watching TV instead of studying. I scoffed silently, but figured Wen Qingwan must have just found out about his illness and was taking it hard, so I mercifully held back from provoking him. I obediently turned off the TV and looked at Wen Qingwan with a beaming smile. "You're absolutely right, brother. I shouldn't be so addicted to television that I can't pull myself away. I'll start studying hard and striving for improvement right away. Oh, by the way, brother, I've got great news. I passed the physics competition and got admitted to Tsinghua University." I watched Wen Qingwan with a cheerful grin, and sure enough, I saw his face darken. The better I am, the more annoyed he gets. I don't just want to kill him, I want to break his spirit. Watching Wen Qingwan storm back into his room and slam the door, I felt a deep satisfaction as I pulled out my phone to message Chen Su. "Check if Wen Qingwan has already gone to the hospital for an examination." "Yes." Chen Su replied to my message instantly. I raised an eyebrow. "What's up?" Chen Su directly sent me a medical record image and said, "Wen Qingwan has already gone for the examination. Here's his chat history with Chen Su." Zhang Xianying went too. "His chat history with Chen Su is even more interesting. I'm sending it to you. Take a look." I can hardly wait any longer. I grinned while reading the chat history Chen Su sent me. The chat log between Zhang Xianying and Chen Su showed me what it means when thieves fall out. Zhang Xianying confronted Chen Su, demanding, "Didn't you say Wen Qingwan never touched you? Then how did you get this disease?" Chen Su refused to admit it and instead turned the tables on Zhang Xianying. "I've done nothing wrong. You're the only man I've been with." Zhang Xianying, "Did you catch something from fooling around and pass it to me?" Chen Su's ability to twist the blame was truly masterful. That clueless Zhang Xianying had already been led astray by Chen Su. Zhang Xianying began to defend himself. "I swear, Su, you're the only woman for me. I've never fooled around." "Did Wen Qingwan actually succeed with you?" "Wen Qingwan must have plenty of women. Who knows what diseases he might have." Su, "Did he force himself on you?" Honestly, if Chen Su had just gone along and admitted it, then the whole matter could have been dropped. If Chen Su had just gone along with it and admitted, he could have claimed Wen Qingwan forced him. The only reason Chen Su got together with Wen Qingwan in the first place was for Zhang Xianying's sake. If Chen Su had confessed because of this, that poor sap Zhang Xianying definitely wouldn't have blamed him. He'd probably even think Chen Su did it all for him, and would only feel heartache for Chen Su. Unfortunately, Chen Su was the type who wouldn't admit defeat until he was backed into a corner, so he stubbornly refused to acknowledge that when Qingwan had succeeded, she insisted that Zhang Xianying must have been fooling around, which was why she had contracted the illness. "Zhang Xianying, why are you trying to pin the blame on me when you're the one who messed up?" Chen Su never really believed that a prominent figure like Zhang Xianying in Beijing's elite circles could have only been with her. That's why she had held on to a sliver of hope, but as it turned out, that poor fool Zhang Xianying truly had only ever been with Chen Su. No wonder people call Zhang Xianying a walking doormat. 12. Zhang Xianying had probably been too much of a pushover before, which gave Chen Su the wrong impression that he was easy to bully. But let's not forget, Zhang Xianying is the crown prince of Beijing's elite circles. There's no way he'd settle for being someone's whipping boy. Since Chen Su kept denying everything, Zhang Xianying simply sent people to investigate the matter. If Chen Su had just admitted she was coerced by Wen Qingwan, none of this would have happened, but she stubbornly refused to acknowledge it. Zhang Xianying's investigation quickly uncovered all the men Chen Su had been involved with. This revelation sent Zhang Xianying into an existential crisis. "How could you do this to me, Su?" Zhang Xianying listlessly smoked a cigarette. Seeing his state, Chen Su decided to lay her cards on the table. "If you can't satisfy me in bed, don't blame me for seeking it elsewhere. With such matters, the sooner they're discovered, the sooner they can be addressed." Zhang Xianying had no time to deal with Chen Su now. His sole focus was on finding a cure for his condition. Chinsu was no pushover either. After Zhang Xianying laid his cards on the table, she quickly realized she was being targeted, and just like that, I was kidnapped. Chinsu let his guard down for just a moment, and that was all the opening Chinsu needed to snatch me. Luckily, Chinsu acted fast. The moment he lost contact with me, he hacked into Chinsu's computer and phone, tracked me down, and rescued me. And Nan, another one of Chinsu's lackeys, what's your plan? Why did you tie up Wen Mingzhu? The person holding me hostage right now was a Nan. When Chinsu found me, he had already investigated the person who kidnapped me as well. Though still a student, Chinsu had been working under Zhang Qingxian for years and had become quite adept at handling many matters. For instance, when Anan initially dismissed us as kids and refused to engage, Chinsu's icy demeanor and detached tone cut through when he asked, "Your mother's medical bills must have been piling up these past few years. Maybe it's time to stop the treatments. What are you trying to pull?" Before Chinsu could finish speaking, Anan couldn't help but cut him off. "Then tell me, what's your plan?" As Chinsu said this, a cold sneer never left his lips, which instantly made cold sweat bead on Anan's forehead. I just wanted to tie Wen Yao up. But as for how to actually do it, I really haven't figured that part out yet. That's obviously a lie. As someone in this line of work, how could Anan possibly act without prior planning and preparation? It's just that now that he's been caught by Chinsu's men, only a fool would reveal his plans under these circumstances. However, Chinsu wasn't someone easily deceived. He glanced at Anan, let out a cold snort, and said calmly, "Anan, in your profession, what are the chances of success if you charge in recklessly without a plan?" The success rate would be virtually zero. Without a solid plan, the countless uncertainties in this world make achieving success nearly impossible. With a success rate like Anan's, there's no way he didn't prepare in advance. Chinsu shot a cold glance at Anan, who immediately realized that getting past him would be even tougher than overcoming all obstacles in Wenqingwan. Chinsu was far harder to fool. Anan let out a heavy sigh. His original plan was to tie me up first, then gradually intimidate me until I was utterly terrified, before finally stabbing me to death with a knife. He's determined to make me suffer. Ever since finding out Chinsu is sick, Anan, who'd been intimate with her, has been living in constant fear. Instead of blaming Chinsu for her recklessness, he resents me for exposing the truth. Because of me, he's been on edge every day, so he holds a grudge against me too. That's why Anan thinks now that he's got me tied up, he must seize this chance to get his revenge. There's no way Anan would ever admit this to Chinsu. If he actually spoke those words out loud, Chinsu would probably make him suffer a far more gruesome fate. Anan lowered his head, his eyes shifting slightly as an idea formed. He looked up at Chinsu with a feigned expression of reluctance and said, "Originally, I planned to poison Wen Mingzhu. It's the most reliable method. Once I watch her drink the poison, even a miracle couldn't save her after half an hour. That was my initial plan, but I hadn't taken any steps yet before you captured me." Anan was clever enough to weigh his options. He knew Chinsu would never believe any claim that he wasn't prepared or didn't intend to kill me, so he opted for the least painful method of death he could propose. This way, he might avoid a brutal end. And if Chinsu entrusted him with a task, like turning against Chinsu, handling it well could potentially spare his life. Anan had quite the optimistic thought, believing that by helping Chinsu, he might be forgiven and spared his life. Others might show mercy and forgive such things, but for someone like Chinsu, who holds grudges over the smallest offenses, it's simply impossible. Chinsu just snorted coldly, not caring whether Anan's words were true or false. Regardless, even if it was just for what happened 3 years ago, Chinsu had no intention of going easy on him. After locking Anan in the rental apartment, Chinsu and I left first. Chinsu furrowed his brow and asked me, "What's the deal with this Anan? I think there's more to him. He must be connected to Wenqingwan." I lowered my head, fiddling with my fingers as I pondered deeply. If it were just Chinsu, I don't think he'd have what it takes to kidnap me on his own. I paused briefly before continuing. Chinsu must have sought Wenqingwan's help, when already wanted me gone. Even if he resents Chen for giving him that illness, he'd still agree to help Chen find someone to kidnap me. Moreover, I suspect this Anan is connected to my disappearance years ago. You should look into that as well. After hearing my explanation, Chinsu's expression shifted to one of dawning comprehension as things became clearer in his mind. I nodded to Chinsu and added, "Well, back then, I always thought my brother had accidentally lost me, but later I realized he never liked me. Perhaps my disappearance wasn't an accident after all. I remember back then, my brother asked me to go out with him, saying he'd buy me candy. I never really had much of a sweet tooth, but the fact that my brother, who'd never shown me much affection, wanted to take me out for treats made me feel like I was finally winning him over. I was over the moon as I followed him out, never imagining he was actually planning to abandon me. With that, I let out another heavy sigh and added, if I hadn't run into Mother Superior that day, I probably wouldn't have survived the winter. 13. Thinking back on all the foolish things I did in my past life to try and win Wen Qingwan's favor, I just want to punch myself. Qin heaved a deep sigh, his eyes filled with hatred. Was all of this done by that Anan? I nodded, then let out another cold laugh. Can't really blame Anan. If it weren't for Chen Su and Wen Qingwan pulling the strings, why would he come after me? He's just a hired hand doing his job. At this point, I sighed again. Qin Su raised an eyebrow and asked, from the sound of it, you're not holding a grudge against Anan, you're aiming to settle the score with Chen Su and Wen Qingwan instead, letting Anan off the hook. That wouldn't be me. Wen Mingzhu, I scoffed, shot Qin Su a glance, and continued, Qin Su, have always believed in paying back what's owed. Besides, Anan tried to kill me once, and now he's back for round 2. If I let him walk away after he served himself up on a silver platter, I'd have to be out of my mind. Exactly, with the culprit delivered right to our doorstep. Failing to exact revenge would be sheer idiocy. Qin Su shrugged, giving me a pained look. Zhu, don't worry, I'll stay by your side and keep you safe. He paused briefly before continuing. I promise I won't let any of them get away. I've already sent word to Brother Qingxian. He'll return with concrete evidence that Wen Qingwan masterminded your kidnapping. Qin Su has no intention of letting the person who hurt me get away with it. Seeing the flicker of hatred in Qin Su's eyes warmed my heart. Maybe every cloud has a silver lining. If not for what happened back then, I wouldn't have gone to the orphanage and met you. Qin Su. Perhaps God took pity on my miserable life and brought you to me. Meeting you has been the greatest blessing after all that suffering. Qin Su's gaze softened with emotion. Pearl, you're the only sweet thing that's happened to me in all these bitter years. If all the suffering I endured before meeting Wen Mingzhu was just paving the way to find her, Qin Su thought, then it was all worth it. Hearing Qin Su's words, I immediately reached out and embraced him, my eyes turning slightly red. Qin Su, our life has been getting better and better. I believe it will continue to improve in the future. I'd been with Qin Su through his lowest moments, climbing up step by step. The hardships we've endured along the way are something only the two of us truly understand. As I said this, my eyes also welled up with tears. We held each other on the playground for a long time, and just as we were about to part, we heard a sarcastic voice. Wen Yao, you and Qin Su really are close, aren't you? So close that you're hugging in public. Do you even know what propriety and shame mean? Yi Qiqi instantly recognized Zhang Xianying's voice. She lifted her gaze to meet his, a hint of mockery flashing in her eyes. My relationship with Qin Su is absolutely wonderful. After all, he would never betray me. There was a clear insinuation behind my words. Although Zhang Xianying and I haven't completely turned against each other yet, I have no intention of being friendly with him. Zhang Xianying. How does it feel to be tormented by illness? Zhang Xianying's face indeed darkened. Zhang Xianying was once so important to me, but later, because of Chen Su, he pushed me into traffic. After experiencing such betrayal, I wanted nothing more than to tear him limb from limb. Zhang Xianying is the epitome of the magistrates are free to burn down houses, while the common people are forbidden even to light lamps. He could betray me without consequence, yet wouldn't tolerate my coldness toward him. Whenever I showed him indifference and warmth to Qin Su, he would respond with sarcastic remarks or start making snide comments. Take this time for example, I merely hugged Qin Su, and Zhang Xianying immediately started making sarcastic remarks. I'm honestly speechless. Zhang Xianying has always believed I'm deeply in love with him, even though he's clearly chosen Chen Su. He still treats me like his property and forbids me from interacting with other men. I'd finally reached my limit. So I shot back with a sarcastic comment of my own. Little did I expect that single remark would reduce Zhang Xianying to tears. Wen Yao, are you suggesting I betrayed you? Watching a grown man cry like this left me utterly speechless. Zhang Xianying looked at me with such grievance, as if my words had completely misjudged him. Seeing Zhang Xianying's pitiful display, Qin Su and I couldn't help but sneer. Our earlier argument had already torn away any pretense of civility. So Qin Su didn't bother sparing his feelings and retorted with a cold laugh. You never actually betrayed Juju, because she was never with you in the first place. Even if you wanted to be with her and betray her, she wouldn't have given you the chance. Qin hadn't been reborn and had no knowledge of what happened in his previous life, but Zhang Xianying was a reincarnator. He knew exactly what had transpired in his past life. Yet even so, he still had the audacity to come crying to me, asking if he had ever betrayed me. I really don't know where he gets the nerve. The moment Qin spoke, his words, both explicitly and implicitly, conveyed to Zhang Xianying that I simply don't think much of him. Zhang Xianying naturally picked up on the underlying meaning in Qin's words. He narrowed his eyes at Qin, then turned to me with a deliberately pitiful expression. Juju, the truth is, I've always had feelings for you, but back then, Qin was the one by my side. I was completely taken in by his looks. When you refused to help me, I only kept talking to Qin because I wanted to get your attention. Juju, please believe me, I'm truly in love with you. I could hardly resist giving Zhang Xianying a round of applause. With acting skills like that, it's a waste of talent not to go for an Oscar. You didn't come running to me as a backup option just because Qin got sick and you don't want to be with her anymore, did you? I watched Zhang Xianying speak, a cold sneer lingering in my eyes the whole time. Even though it wasn't the right moment to tear into him just yet, I really didn't feel like talking to him much either. Qin listened to Zhang Xianying's twisted version of events, a cold smirk curling at the corner of his lips. His eyes brimmed with mockery as he stared at Zhang Xianying. Zhang Xianying, who taught you this talent for twisting the truth? His tone feigned interest, but his eyes were filled with nothing but scorn. Zhang Xianying looked at Qin, a flicker of malice quickly flashing in his eyes before his expression shifted into one of feigned grievance. Qin, why do you always hold such a grudge against me? I know you've never liked me, but I truly never intended to compete with you for Wen Yao's affection. Wen Yao and I share a bond that goes back years. The three of us could have coexisted peacefully, but you, why can't you just tolerate my presence? As he spoke, Zhang Xianying turned to me with a wounded expression. Hearing his words, I was absolutely floored. Zhang Xianying had truly mastered the art of playing the male green tea. The underlying message in Zhang Xianying's words was clear. From the very beginning, Qin had been undermining our relationship to secure his own place in my heart, all while subtly driving a wedge between Qin and me. Qin watched my antics with a cold gaze, his eyes filled with nothing but mockery. Qin hasn't said a single word about you, I retorted, looking at Zhang Xianying with equally scornful eyes, unable to hide my disgust. As for your claim about being manipulated by others, I originally had no intention of bringing it up and was going to let you get away with twisting the truth, but you're completely lacking in self-awareness. The more you talk, the more outrageous you become. I had reached my limit. Though Zhang Xianying seemed eager to say more after hearing my words, I had no desire to listen any further. I turned and walked away without another glance. Zhang Xianying only came to me seeking validation because he felt manipulated by Qin, was hurting inside, and suddenly remembered how good I had been to him in our past life. Unfortunately for him, his clever little scheme backfired. Since I'm also reborn and have lived through all the things he did to me in our previous life, there's no way I could ever forgive him, so no matter what antics Zhang Xianying pulls, I refuse to give him the time of day. I've been counting the days, and it seems Zhang Qingxian should be returning to the country in just a few days. Lately, I've been making frequent visits to the Zhang's place, trying to stay on Auntie Ruan's radar, all in hopes of getting some information about Zhang Qingxian's return. Unfortunately, details about his return are kept tightly under wraps. No matter how much I tried to dig for information, I came up empty-handed. Auntie Ruan could only sigh helplessly. Qingxian has always been a bit of an odd one since he was little. Once he makes up his mind, no one can change it. If he doesn't want us to pick him up, he won't give away even a hint. He really is quite the eccentric. I'm really wondering how Zhang Xianying found out about Zhang Qingxian's return. Considering how tightly Qingxian kept the news under wraps, it seems Zhang Xianying is more resourceful than I thought. I glanced at Zhang Xianying, who kept looking in my direction, then nodded at Aunt Ruan and added, Auntie, even if Qingxian told you when he's coming back, please don't breathe a word to anyone. This was a subtle reminder to Aunt Ruan that there was someone she needed to be wary of, and who that person was went without saying, didn't it? Aunt Ruan nodded with a smile, ruffled my hair, and teased, what? Not even little Juju. I shook my head with feigned seriousness. I can handle it. Auntie Ruan chuckled at my antics, patting my head with a smile. after sharing a laugh with her for a moment. I made my excuses and left. I deliberately avoided Zhang Xianying and headed back home. I sent Qin Su a WeChat message, asking him to find out when Zhang Qingxian would be back. Since they're business partners, it should be easy enough for him to get the scoop on Zhang Qingxian's return date. Qin Su replied to my message quickly. After thinking it over, I decided to meet up with him in person. I have a feeling Zhang Xianying and his crew know you're working for Zhang Qingxian. Be careful lately, I'm worried they might come after you too. Qin Su shrugged. That's not a big deal, I've got nothing to lose, so if they're crazy, I can be crazier. Besides, that illness is so hard to treat, they're probably too busy dealing with their own mess to bother with us. Then he paused, looked at me, and sighed. Juju, I don't want you to be like this, I want you to be happy. I'm perfectly happy right now. I beamed at Qin Su, my gaze completely transparent. 14. Don't worry about me, once we put them all away, I can't even imagine how carefree I'll be. Qin Su looked at me and shook his head with a resigned smile. I know Qin Su doesn't want me to live a life consumed by hatred. I once told him about my rebirth story. When Qin Su learned how Zhang Xianying had treated me, he absolutely loathed the man. Qin Su once offered to get revenge for me, but I turned him down. Qin Su, just being there for me when I need you is already more than enough help. Zhang Xianying only came to me seeking validation because he felt manipulated by Qin Su, was hurting inside, and suddenly remembered how good I had been to him in our past life. Unfortunately for him, his clever little scheme backfired. Since I'm also reborn and have lived through all the things he did to me in our previous life, there's no way I could ever forgive him, so no matter what antics Zhang Xianying pulls, I refuse to give him the time of day. I've been counting the days. And it seems Zhang Qingxian should be returning to the country in just a few days. Lately, I've been making frequent visits to the Zhang's place, trying to stay on Auntie Ruan's radar, all in hopes of getting some information about Zhang Qingxian's return. Unfortunately, details about his return are kept tightly under wraps. No matter how much I tried to dig for information, I came up empty-handed. Auntie Ruan could only sigh helplessly. Qingxian has always been a bit of an odd one since he was little. Once he makes up his mind, no one can change it. If he doesn't want us to pick him up, he won't give away even a hint. He really is quite the eccentric. I'm really wondering how Zhang Xianying found out about Zhang Qingxian's return. Considering how tightly Qingxian kept the news under wraps, it seems Zhang Xianying is more resourceful than I thought. I glanced at Zhang Xianying, who kept looking in my direction, then nodded at Aunt Ruan and added, Auntie, even if Qingxian told you when he's coming back, please don't breathe a word to anyone. This was a subtle reminder to Aunt Ruan that there was someone she needed to be wary of, and who that person was went without saying, didn't it? Aunt Ruan nodded with a smile, ruffled my hair, and teased, what, not even little Juju? I shook my head with feigned seriousness, I can handle it. Auntie Ruan chuckled at my antics, patting my head with a smile. After sharing a laugh with her for a moment, I made my excuses and left. I deliberately avoided Zhang Xianying and headed back home. I sent Qin Su a WeChat message, asking him to find out when Zhang Qingxian would be back. Since they're business partners, it should be easy enough for him to get the scoop on Zhang Qingxian's return date. I got my wish and went to pick up Zhang Qingxian, thanks to my intervention. Zhang Qingxian's return went smoothly this time. There was no car accident, and his future remains bright. Uncle Zhang threw a welcome home party at his house for Zhang Qingxian. My parents were running late due to other commitments. My brother left without me, so I had to go to the Zhangs alone in my designer cocktail dress, feeling utterly forlorn. I walked down the spiral staircase to the living room and spotted my brother standing with Zhang Xianying from a distance. The two men were dressed in sharp suits, looking every bit the part of respectable gentlemen. When they noticed my arrival, my brother shot me an icy glare and said, "Wen Mingzhu, come here." I raised an eyebrow, walked over, and flashed a saccharine smile in front of everyone. "You called for me, brother." I rarely addressed him with such sugary sweetness, and when Qingwan visibly shuddered with discomfort, Qin Su hid behind Zhang Xianying, on the verge of tears, bullying classmates, making personal attacks. "Wen Mingzhu, is this what the Wen family upbringing taught you?" When Cheng Yuan's voice did not soften in the slightest, everyone around heard Wen Cheng Yuan's words. Suddenly, all eyes were on me. I glanced at Qin Su, raising an eyebrow. "What are you talking about, brother? I don't understand. You said I bullied classmates. Who exactly did I bully? And personal attacks, who did I attack, brother? You'd better back up your words with evidence." "Without proof." I won't acknowledge any of this, Wen Qingwan sneered coldly, trying to weasel out of it now that you're scared. Did it ever cross your mind when you were hurling insults at your classmates that it would come to this? Wrongdoings always come with consequences. With our parents not around, I'll take it upon myself to teach you a lesson in their place. As he spoke, Wen Qingwan's face turned stern and he barked out a sharp command, on your knees. In the vast banquet hall, countless eyes were fixed on us. Oh my, the Wen family's daughter actually bullied her classmate. She looks so quiet and gentle. I can't believe she'd do something like that. Oh dear, children raised with excessive pampering just can't stand others being better than them. These wealthy heiresses are all like that. Thank goodness her brother upheld justice and didn't show favoritism, otherwise, that poor girl would have nowhere to turn for help. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, Chen Su seized the opportunity to shoot me a challenging glare. Under everyone's gaze, I straightened my back and started acting out. Kneel, bro, are you from the Qing dynasty or something? In my life, I only kneel to my parents, deities, and the deceased. Sure, I'll kneel for you. Just jump off this building first. Do it, and I'll drop to my knees without another word. Go on, jump, what's stopping you? I stared at Chen Su and Wen Qingwan, my gaze icy cold. Wen Qingyan's eyes instantly darkened. Chen Su wiped her tears and spoke to me in a pitiful tone. Wen Yao, I know you've never liked me. Ever since the orphanage, you've had people bully me. But if you want to bully me, fine. How could you speak to your own brother like that? Stop putting on an act. I rolled my eyes. If you keep spreading rumors that I'm bullying you, I'll beat you up right here in front of everyone. Don't think I won't. Chen Su immediately put on an innocent expression, tears instantly streaming down her face. Zhang Xianying, who was standing nearby, spoke up at that moment. He looked at me with feigned gentleness in his tone. Yao Yao, if you've done something wrong, you should apologize. Don't be afraid, just say you're sorry to Shushu, and she'll definitely forgive you. I sneered. Yao Yao, who's Yao Yao? Why should I, when Mingzhu, apologize for Yao Yao's mistakes? Go find Yao Yao if you want someone to blame. Enough. Wen Qingguan cut me off, glaring furiously. Wen Mingzhu, you have no shame. What are you barking about? I cut Wen Qingguan off as well. Just then, my parents came in from outside. Seeing everyone staring in our direction and whispering, they hurried over with concern, gently shielding me behind them. What's wrong, Zhuzhu? I immediately burst into tears. Mom, my brother teamed up with outsiders to accuse me of bullying a classmate, but I barely even interact with Chen Su at school. I don't understand why he'd rather join others in slandering me than believe his own sister. Is it because he secretly pulled strings to get Chen Su into our school? That must be why he's giving her special treatment. How did you find out? When Qingwan was taken aback that I knew about this, staring at me in astonishment, I gave Wang Qingyu a sweet smile and said, I also know that you've made a deal with Zhang Xianying to share Chen Su together. As I spoke, I winked at Zhang Qingxian, who understood my cue and proceeded to turn on the big screen. I then operated my phone to publicly broadcast the audio recording of Wang Qingyu and Zhang Xianying's agreement to share Chen Su. I discovered Qin's talent for computers as early as middle school. I invested heavily in training Qin so precisely so he could hack into their computers. In my past life, I could never understand why my own brother would side with an outsider to destroy me at my own wedding. In this lifetime, I've been searching for the answer. Just 2 days ago, Qin hacked into Zhang Xianying's computer and uncovered the truth. My decision to pick up Zhang Qingxian wasn't just about righting past wrongs. It was also to secure an alliance with him. At the banquet held in Zhang Qingxian's honor, not only were the relationships between Zhang Xianying, Chen Su, and Wen Qingguan exposed, but most importantly, a recording was revealed of Zhang Xianying and Wen Qingguan plotting to stage a fatal car accident for Zhang Qingxian. My task was to expose the relationship between the three of them, while Zhang Qingxian was responsible for revealing the audio recording of their plot to orchestrate his accidental death in a car crash. We divided the work between us. Now, with all these revelations laid bare before the entire elite of the capital, the expressions on my parents' and Uncle Zhang's faces were utterly mortified. Dad, with what my brother and Zhang Xianying did, is that considered a crime now? What should we do? Is my brother going to jail? My mother looked pained, but when she met Aunt Ruan's furious gaze, she couldn't bring herself to plead for leniency. Zhang Qingxian had already called the police when he released the audio recording. By this time, the police were already waiting outside. Even though the assault was attempted, it's enough to detain him as a dangerous individual. If Zhang Qingxian submits a letter of forgiveness later, the sentence might be reduced. However, Zhang Qingxian refused to write the letter and even uncovered Chen Su's history of bullying other classmates behind the scenes. Several girls who were bullied by Chen Su couldn't endure the harassment and ultimately took their own lives. The reason this incident never came to light is because Zhang Xianying and Wen Qingwan were pulling strings behind the scenes. Originally, my father could have pulled some strings to get a lighter sentence, but with a life lost and me secretly fanning the flames online, public outrage grew to a point where it became impossible to cover up. All three of them ended up behind bars. Their lives essentially ruined. The look in Zhang Xianying's eyes as he was taken away was utterly agonizing. I thought a second chance would let me make up for past regrets. I made what seemed the right choice, yet it still ended like this. How did it come to this? It's like the fable of the snake that tried to swallow an elephant. Your greed knows no bounds, because you always think of yourselves and never of others. Letting you spend your lives behind bars to face legal punishment is the greatest mercy I can offer. Watching the three of them walk away, a faint smile tugged at the corner of my lips. At least Chen Su and Zhang Xianying were also reborn. This way, even if I seek revenge, it will only be directed at the two individuals who originally inflicted the pain upon me. Story 2. On the night of the graduation dinner, I sent the drunk school babe to the school bully's room. My childhood friend, however, mistook me for the school babe. It was a chaotic night. Everyone said that I deliberately broke up him and the school babe, so much so that after marriage, no matter what I did, I couldn't warm my childhood friend's heart, until I accidentally heard him talking on the phone on the street. As long as he can be happy, I'm willing to hold back Shi Nianchu for a lifetime. Otherwise, who would want to marry a bookworm home? Doesn't she want a child? I'll give her one. The harsh sound of a car horn behind interrupted his words. My childhood friend subconsciously turned his head and saw me at the corner. Instantly, he ran towards me in a panic, trying to push me away. The next moment, we were both hit and sent flying by a car. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the graduation dinner. This time, I decided to fulfill his relationship with the school babe. 1. Only my childhood friend, Shen Xinian, knew that I liked the school bully, Yao Yi. On the night of the university graduation dinner, Song Yi asked me to take her to rest. I didn't know that it was the school bully's room. Moreover, the school babe had an excellent acting skill. As soon as she was out of everyone's sight, she became sober in an instant. Even when she looked at me, there was mockery in her eyes. In my previous life, I couldn't understand these things. After all, I was the scheming and vicious bookworm in everyone's mouth. It was not until I heard Shen Xinyan's phone call before I died in my previous life that I finally woke up completely. So it turned out that he could sacrifice his whole life for Song Yi. I was so stupid to believe that the love he said when he proposed to me was real. Before I died, Shen Xinyan and I fell in a pool of blood together. When the speeding car crashed into us, he desperately protected me in his arms and used his back to resist the impact for me. However, at such a time, doing anything was of no avail. The violent impact directly sent me flying more than 10 meters away. Before my consciousness dissipated, I vaguely saw, not far away, Shen Xinian, stubbornly covered in blood. Even though his whole body was shaking with pain, he still tried his best to crawl towards me. The wounds on his 10 fingers were so deep that the bones could be seen, and his voice was shaking terribly. Xiao Chu, don't scare me, wake up and listen to my explanation. I was wrong, Xiao Chu. Shen Xinyan's heart-broken voice made me want to vomit, and immediately a large mouthful of blood gushed out of my mouth. At the last moment of my life, I finally fought once. I used all my strength to move my fingers, avoiding Shen Xinyan's hand that was desperately reaching out to interlock fingers with mine. It was too late to admit mistakes now. Chu, what do you mean it's too late? You haven't drunk much either. Come on, have some more. I was awakened from my memories. Only then did I realize that I had been reborn and returned to my senior year. The school bully was the host and invited us classmates to his empty villa to celebrate our university graduation. The graduation dinner might be the beginning of a new life for others, but for me in my previous life, it was the entrance to hell. The one who spoke just now was the school babe, Song Yi. Her voice was sweet and delicate. Shen Xinian always asked me to learn from her, even when she was angry. It was like acting coquettishly, and few people could refuse. I couldn't drink alcohol originally, but since the school babe took the initiative to toast, if I didn't drink, people would say that I was ungrateful. Unfortunately, the time point of my rebirth was not right. I had already drunk a glass of wine just now, and I started to feel a little dizzy. so no matter how much Sanyi tried to persuade me, I didn't drink another drop. I just held my glasses and pretended to be drunk. After all, I still had something to do later and couldn't really get drunk. Seeing this, Sanyi's eyes rolled. She picked up her wine glass and said to the others at the table, "The top student won't drink, then I'll drink the rest for her." I lowered my head and sneered. She was clearly drinking the wine in her own glass, but she said she was drinking for me. In my previous life, how could I have her scheming? She really talked a good game. I poured a glass of plain water, held it and took a sip, silently watching Sanyi perform. At this time, Shinsinian had already helped Sanyi get Yaoyi drunk and sent him upstairs, and Shinsinian himself had also drunk a lot and was resting in the room next to Yao Yez. At this time, Sanyi was performing so hard, she was probably up to something else. Soon, Sanyi's cheeks turned red from drinking, and she leaned on me with hazy eyes. She said in a voice that everyone could hear, "Choo-choo, I drank so much to block the wine for you. You send me upstairs to rest. My life and fortune are all in your hands. Choo-choo, you must ensure my safety." In my previous life, I had already been drunk by Sanyi. I only heard the words, "go upstairs to rest," clearly from what she said. Then I was dizzily taken upstairs by her. However, after being reborn, I found that Sanyi's words and actions at this time were extremely clever. She said that it was because of me that she drank too much. I had the obligation to send her to rest safely, and as soon as she said these words, a seed was planted in the minds of everyone present. Whatever happened to Sanyi tonight was all my fault, coupled with her drunken appearance at the moment, needing to lean on me to walk. It showed her harmless identity to the outside world, but no one knew that from an angle that others couldn't see. Sanyi, relying on her height advantage over me, her hands seemed to be on my shoulders, looking as soft as boneless. In fact, she was pinching my shoulders and pushing me out. The pain in my shoulders made me frown, so I simply pretended to be drunk. Taking the opportunity of taking off my glasses, I shook off the restraint on my shoulders. Then, I softened into Sanyi's arms all of a sudden, half a head shorter than her. With a blushing baby face, I hugged her and acted coquettishly in a soft voice. "Sister E, I'm so dizzy, I can't walk anymore." Everyone present didn't expect me to react like this. After all, in their eyes, Sanyi and I were love rivals, because Shinsinian liked her, and when I was asked who I liked during the game of truth or dare just now, I also said it was Shinsinian. Soon, I heard someone exclaim, "Damn, the top student is really drunk," hiding in Sanyi's arms. I didn't say a word and just pretended to be drunk, from an angle that others couldn't see. I twitched the corner of my mouth and smiled. Sanyi was frightened by my actions, and her eyes instantly became clear, but she still needed me to take the blame for her tonight, so she could only grit her teeth and endure, not pushing me away. Moreover, in order to make the fake seem real, she really drank a lot of wine and was at least 80% drunk now. With my messy hair, I blinked and looked at her. "Sister E, let's sleep together tonight." 3. I don't know what Sanyi was thinking at the moment, but that was really my plan. Only by staying with me tonight could Sanyi prevent the chaos from happening. Moreover, I had lived 10 more years than Sanyi at this time. In my eyes, she was a misguided younger sister. Perhaps she had experienced something in college that made her eager to find a rich boyfriend now. But the little girl, for the sake of face, designed me. She wanted everyone to think that I was jealous that Shinsinian liked her, so I deliberately sent the drunkard to the school bully's room. In my previous life, her plan was very successful. The day after the dinner, I became a synonym for viciousness. Everyone said that I had hurt her, and everyone cursed me when they mentioned me. Gradually, I also thought that it was all my fault for drinking too much and sending her to the wrong room. It was me who caused her to disappear for 10 years. And it was also me who caused Shinsinian to lose his beloved, so I started to try every means to atone for my sins. Since I couldn't find Sanyi, I gave all my repentance to Shinsinian. I started to learn to love him, wanting to warm his heart with my sincerity, just hoping that he would stop hating me. After all, I was adopted by the Shin family since I was a child, and I couldn't repay the kindness of more than 10 years of raising, but in the end, the one who was deceived the most was me. Shinsinian could actually sacrifice his whole life for Sanyi, using marriage to hold me back, not allowing me the slightest chance to destroy Sanyi's happiness. Actually, on the day of the car accident, I went to find Shinsinian. I originally wanted to tell him the whereabouts of Sanyi. It was also on this day that I learned from Yaoyi where Sanyi had been for the past 10 years. I wanted him to see Sanyi's true face. Let him stop feeling guilty about why he got drunk and didn't protect Song Yi well on the day of the dinner. But before I could say anything, we were hit and killed. I was very grateful to God for giving me the chance to be reborn. Just now at the dinner table, I had been thinking, what should I do to repay God's gift? I had thought about taking revenge on Song Yi severely, making her taste what it was like to be ruined. But when I looked at the girl in front of me like a flower, I couldn't bear it. So when Song Yi asked me to send her to rest, I asked her in public if she wanted to sleep together. If she chose to be with me tonight and no longer do wrong things, then I would let go of what happened in my previous life. After all, there were 2 time spaces apart. There was no reason for me to take revenge on her in this time space for what she did to me in the other time space. But if she insisted on being stupid, I would also respect her choice. Everyone had to be responsible for their own choices, so, when Song Yi pushed me and stopped between the 2 doors, I asked her a second time, decide for yourself, do you want to sleep here tonight or go to another room with me? At this time, the effect of the alcohol on Song Yi came up, and her eyes were hazy when she looked at me, but when she heard my question, she still shook her head vigorously, trying to stay awake. Let me think. I can't remember. Song Yi said as she knocked on her head a few times. Seeing this, I directly asked her who she chose. On the left is, I wanted to tell her that on the left was Xiao Yi, on the right was Shen Xinian, and I was beside her. However, before I could finish my words, I was interrupted by Song Yi. I forgot who I drugged. This sentence was like a thunderbolt exploding in my ear, making me stunned. At this moment, when I looked at Song Yi again, I just felt that she was like something rotten. The blooming flower had rotted from the root. In order to achieve her goal, she would actually use such a despicable means. I started to think about whether I had been drugged. Subconsciously, I took a step back and distanced myself from her. I asked her again, but got the same answer. She said, anyone is fine, just pick one. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, deciding to let go of my savior complex and respect her fate. So I coldly watched her enter Shen Xinian's room by herself. Then I turned around and pushed open the door of the next room. Song Yi couldn't remember who she drugged, but I had the memories of my previous life. As soon as she said it, I knew who had been drugged. Tonight, I'll still come to save this poor little school bully. As soon as I opened the door, I was shivered by the cold air. The room was frighteningly messy, with water stains everywhere. Following the sound of water, I looked over. The always arrogant and cool school bully was now sitting pitifully on the ground, with his back against the sofa, pouring ice water over his head. His short-sleeved shirt was thrown aside. He was only wearing a pair of gray sweatpants. Xiao Yi lowered his head. His short, black hair was wet and stuck to his face, slightly covering his eyebrows and eyes. Water droplets slid down his sharp jawline and dripped onto his pants. 1 drop, 2 drops, creating a damp patch. It made people thirsty. The boy's slender fingers with distinct joints were squeezing the plastic water bottle, making it creak. Xiao Yi raised his head, seeing that no more water could be poured out. He actually stuck his tongue in and licked it. His bright red tongue circled around the mouth of the bottle and then retracted. The view was blocked by his full lips. The Xiao Yi in my memory was still a teenager with red hair and earrings, full of arrogance and rebellion. Now looking at him again, that arrogant face was still dazzlingly handsome. However, his red-tinged skin all over his body and his hot gasps indicated his abnormal state at the moment. He reacted a bit slowly and only then realized that someone had entered the room. Without even looking up, he viciously told the person to get out. Who let you in? Get out. But when he turned his head and saw that it was me, the words "don't touch me" in his mouth were forcefully swallowed back. He stumbled and tried to hide in the refrigerator, but because his legs were weak, he sat crookedly on the ground. I took a bottle of ice water, unscrewed it, and handed it to him. Xiao Yi, where's your phone? I'll call a doctor for you. He raised his head and took a few big gulps of water. The water that he didn't have time to swallow flowed down from the corners of his lips to his neck. Then, in a daze, he started groping in his pants pocket for his phone. I saw that his pocket was bulging, as if there was a phone in it, but after a long time, he still couldn't find where the pocket was. He also looked up at me with a confused face. His red lips were moving, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. I thought he was taking too much trouble. I directly pulled his obstructive hand away and went to get it myself. But the moment my hand reached in, I regretted it. With my experience as a urologist in my previous life for many years, this shape was definitely not a phone. Before I could scream, Xiao Yi was already panting unbearably in my ear. the hot air blew past the tip of my ear, and I subconsciously turned my head to avoid the itch, just in time to meet Yao Yi's red-rimmed eyes. I'll go call someone for you. I got up in a panic, but he held me down with a hand, his hand. Through the fabric, pressed on my hand, there was another unbearable gasp. Probably the stimulation brought back some of his consciousness, and a hoarse voice blurted out, "Sure Nianchu." I stared in a daze at Yao Yi, who was a bit delirious. I was a little shocked. So the name he had been mumbling just now was mine. Even in this state, he could recognize me. But in my previous life, why did Shinxinian make a mistake? Why did he mistake me for someone else? Or was it that in Shinxinian's eyes, I was just someone who could be played with at will? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, so I took a step forward, bent down, and lifted Yao Yi's chin. Looking directly at him, I said, "Say it again, who am I?" As soon as my hand touched his skin, I felt a burning heat. When I tried to take it back, Yao Yi held my hand with both of his and gently rubbed his cheek against it. His gaze slid from my lips to my eyes until our eyes met. "Sure Nianchu, help me." 5. The rain in midsummer was extremely abundant, lasting most of the night. In the early morning after the rain, there was still a lingering atmosphere. I quietly opened my eyes. The school bully, who was rumored to be able to kick and break 3 of someone's ribs with one kick, was actually so well behaved when asleep. Fortunately, the doctor came quickly last night. I lay on the edge of the bed all night, watching over him while he was getting in 4 drip. Yesterday he should have been poisoned. The result will be known when the blood test report comes out later. Now it's just dawn outside. I stretched my body greatly, pretending not to see the crazily trembling eyelashes of Yao Yi. I turned around and went out, to rest in the room arranged last night. Yesterday I said I would sleep with Song Yi, and the classmates specially gave us a big bedroom. Now the others in the villa haven't woken up yet, and it's quiet everywhere. I, who hadn't slept all night, lay down on the soft big bed and quickly fell asleep. It was not until late in the morning that I was woken up by the monitor's flustered voice. "Choo-choo, wake up quickly, Song Yi is missing." Several girls were gathered around the bed, some worried, some looking forward to the show. "Song Yi is really restless. Why did Choo-choo fall asleep as soon as she got drunk? She, on the other hand, doesn't know whose bed she's on now." This person was quite sensible. I closed my eyes and pinched myself hard until my eyes were filled with tears. Then I anxiously opened my mouth, my voice with a sobbing tone full of panic. I knew I shouldn't have drunk the wine that Song Yi poured for me last night. My head was dizzy after drinking it. How could she be missing when I woke up? "Let's look for her quickly." A group of people searched the entire villa and finally gathered in front of Shinxinian's room, looking at each other. I pushed my glasses and said self-reproachfully, "It's all my fault that I slept so soundly yesterday. What if she came back and entered the wrong room?" A nosy classmate beside me couldn't hold back when he heard this. "Shinxinian was also drunk yesterday. I hope nothing happened to them." Then he slapped the door hard, for fear of not waking up the people inside. However, there was no sound of chaos coming from the room. The door opened from the inside, and I was pushed to the back of the crowd. Shinxinian's tall figure blocked the door. His half-opened shirt revealed a large expanse of his chest. His eyes casually swept over everyone and he slowly said, "What's all the noise about? What could happen?" "A bunch of kids, always thinking about nonsense all day long." The classmates who were originally making a ruckus to watch the show suddenly fell silent. Hearing this, I was also stunned. This tone was extremely similar to Shinxinian in my previous life. Could it be that he had also been reborn? "Brother Shen, you're really different after getting laid. You don't even look down on us virgins anymore." Someone teased Shinxinian. I also looked up to see Shinxinian's reaction and unexpectedly met his gaze. Shinxinian's hand that was tidying his shirt paused. At this time, I could clearly see the marks on Shinxinian's body, under the half-opened shirt, on his collarbone and chest. They were full of glaring scratch marks. Anyone with eyes could tell how intense they were last night. Before I could say anything, Shinxinian spoke first, excitedly questioning me. "Sure Nianchu, where were you last night? Why was he lying on my bed? Where were you?" Shinxinian and I had been together day and night for more than 10 years, and he always called me by my name directly, but for Song Yi, it was an affectionate address that came out of his mouth immediately. Sure enough, Shinxinian's confession before I died in my previous life was all fake. I frowned and looked at Shinxinian disappointedly. As soon as he said these words, he convicted me. The classmates also looked at me accordingly. Even after being reborn once, He still believed that it was the 18-year-old me who deliberately framed Song Yi. At this moment, I almost once again experienced the despair of being slandered in my previous life. My whole body began to tremble slightly. The monitor noticed that something was wrong with me and protected me behind him. Shinsinian, we're all adults. Why Song Yi appeared in your bed, room, probably only she knows. Choo-Choo isn't your child bride in waiting. Why are you getting angry at Choo-Choo? With the monitor's words, the other classmates also reacted. Yeah. The top student was afraid that something would happen to Song Yi yesterday and even offered to sleep together to take care of her all night. Who knew how Song Yi ended up in your bed? The classmate's words left Shinsinian speechless. He was a bit annoyed. What do you know? Shinsinian reached out to pull me, but I shook him off vigorously. When I looked up again, my eyes were already filled with tears, but Shinsinian didn't see it. He was staring at the red mark on his hand that I had hit, lost in thought. I scolded myself countless times in my heart. I couldn't cry, but I still couldn't help it and felt wronged. Shinsinian, with all the marks on his body, said that he didn't touch Song Yi. Who was he trying to deceive, or was he trying to preserve Song Yi's good reputation? But why was it always me who got hurt? Why in my previous life, when he mistook me for Song Yi, he took me by force, and now, when Song Yi was within easy reach for him, he was reluctant to do anything? Was it just because the Shin family adopted me that I was inferior? Shinsinian saw my tear-stained face but remained indifferent. After all, in his 2 lifetimes, he had never said a soft word to me, except for Song Yi, who could receive his gentle and considerate treatment. Shinsinian always had a cold look that kept people at a distance from everyone else. Suddenly, a slightly hoarse and sweet female voice broke the stalemate. Sinian, do you not want to be responsible for me? Song Yi appeared at the door at some point, with messy clothes and red, swollen eyes. She looked extremely pitiful. Now everyone knew what had happened between them. The scene was chaotic for a while. Song Yi looked at Shinsinian pitifully. Before anyone could react, she cried and ran downstairs. Seeing this, Shinsinian subconsciously wanted to chase after her but stopped abruptly, his eyes hesitating as they landed on me. He was making a choice between me and Song Yi, wondering which one was more important. Song Yi was the white moonlight he couldn't get in his previous life, and I didn't think about it anymore. I wiped away my tears, avoided Shinsinian's outstretched hand, and distanced myself from him. Looking at him with disgust, I said, don't touch me, you're so dirty. You like her, right? I'll fulfill you. 6. I wasn't interested in what exactly was going on between Shinsinian and Song Yi. After this farce ended, I quietly returned to Yao Ye's room. However, as soon as I got the blood test report, I was stunned. She actually gave you this kind of drug. This kind of prohibited drug not only made people weak all over but also had very serious after effects. No wonder he disappeared for so long in his previous life. He had gone to seek medical treatment. Fortunately, the doctor came in time yesterday and no irreparable consequences were caused. Yao Yi didn't react much when he heard my shock. He just sat quietly on the bed, staring blankly out of the window. The way he exuded helplessness and despair all over made my heart ache. It was not until Yao Yi, with his ears completely red, looked at me unnaturally that I realized it was very impolite to keep staring at someone like this. But before I could say sorry, Yao Yi spoke first. He reached out and handed me a card. Thank you for yesterday. This is a reward. Can you keep this a secret for me? I looked at the report in confusion. He seemed to be okay, but I still nodded. Okay, but I pushed the card back to Yao Yi somewhat embarrassedly. I always felt that what I was about to say was a bit like taking advantage of the situation. I'll keep it a secret for you. Can you be my boyfriend? Before I finished speaking, Yao Yi almost jumped up from the bed. He widened his bright eyes and pointed at himself in disbelief. You like me? I was a bit flustered. At this time, I really did like him, but he didn't like me, so I quickly waved my hands, for fear that he would misunderstand. No, I want to ask you for help. Pretend to be my boyfriend and help me move out of the Song family. Is that okay? Yao Ye's bright eyes quickly dimmed again, and he mumbled, I knew you wouldn't like me. His voice was so low, and we were so far apart, I was afraid I had misheard. When I asked him what he said, that I didn't hear clearly, he quickly returned to normal, leaning against the head of the bed, looking as if he understood everything. Sure. You want to take revenge on Shinsinian through me, right? I looked at Yao Yi. I had prepared a lot of words to persuade him to agree to help me, but I swallowed them all back. I didn't expect him to agree so readily. After all, apart from being high school classmates, We had no other interactions. In high school, Yao Yi and I were two extremes in the class, extremely few words and an extreme distance. I was in the first row closest to the podium, and he was in the last row closest to the back door. I couldn't tell when I fell in love with him in my previous life. Perhaps it was when he was late once and happened to meet the teacher praising him for his rapid progress in his studies. On the surface, he didn't care, but when he passed by me, I clearly saw his slightly raised lips and his proud eyebrows and eyes after being praised. For the first time, I thought he was also vivid, not as rebellious as he seemed on the surface, but a good kid who was secretly working hard to study. Maybe I started to be curious about Yao Yi from that time. Every time I smiled, I would subconsciously look at him, then accidentally meet his gaze and then look elsewhere indifferently, lost in the past memories. I was a bit absent-minded. Yao Yi reached out and waved in front of me. "What's wrong with you? Can't you bear to make Shinxinian sad?" I stared in a daze at Yao Yi, who was kneeling on the bed and slightly leaning towards me. There was no past cynicism in his eyes, but full of sincerity. I sighed in my heart. Sure enough, Yao Yi and Shinxinian were sworn enemies. He didn't care whether I liked him or not. He only cared whether Shinxinian would be unhappy. So, I looked up and met the gaze of Yao Yi, who was kneeling on the bed, and replied seriously, "Of course I can bear it. My boyfriend." Nice cooperation. As I said this, I pulled Yao Yi's hand and put the card on it. One should not receive rewards without merit. Now, we were using each other, right? He helped me leave the Shin family, and I helped him annoy Shinxinian, but I didn't expect that the moment Yao Yi met my gaze, he panicked and avoided it. He didn't take the card either. As soon as I touched his hand, Yao Yi was like being electrocuted. He got up from the bed and said randomly, "Since you're my girlfriend now, you have to spend my money. You go and change all the clothes on your body now. Throw away everything related to Shinxinian." I looked down at the clothes on my body. Indeed, it was time to change, so I smiled at Yao Yi, who was looking around randomly but not at me. Okay, I'll listen to my boyfriend, probably because a new life was about to begin. I smiled especially happily this time. Yao Yi seemed to be infected by my happiness and also smiled. At this time, the housekeeper just knocked on the door and came in. I left tactfully. When I closed the door, I heard the housekeeper ask Yao Yi angrily and distressedly, "Master, how are you going to deal with this matter?" I recalled the fate of Song Yi in my previous life. I silently closed the door and left. There was nothing to pity. People had to pay the price for their mistakes. I just didn't know if the reborn Shinxinian would plead for Song Yi. 7. After returning to the Shin family, I started to avoid Shinxinian, but when I saw this familiar place again, those painful memories from my previous life almost rushed back in an instant. At that time, I was mistaken by Shinxinian and drunk by Song Yi. I woke up to know what had happened, but because the person who made the mistake was Shinxinian, I couldn't openly say that I was soiled. I could only scrub myself over and over again in the bathroom, until my whole body was covered with bloodshot marks. I still felt that I wasn't clean, but I had no one to confide in and could only accept it silently. Everyone in the Shin family thought that I should marry Shinxinian. They even considered it a favor to me. No one cared about my thoughts, but after dying once, I realized that the person everyone should please the most was themselves. I'll give you this sentence too. I looked at Shinxinian, who was blocking the door, and said coldly, probably due to his possessiveness, since I wasn't as obedient to him as I was in my previous life. He wasn't used to it. Instead, he was like crazy, trying to find a sense of presence in front of me all day long. I looked at him calmly and expressed my thoughts. "I don't think there's any deep affection between us, and you like Song Yi, right? You're willing to use marriage to hold me back for her. Now what kind of deep love are you pretending to have?" When Shinxinian saw that I was being frank, a look of realization flashed in his eyes. He should have guessed that I was also reborn, otherwise, Shenyanchu at this time wouldn't be so cold. Shinxinian stared at me stubbornly. "It was all my fault before. I just wanted to use Song Yi to make you jealous. Actually, I don't care at all whether Song Yi is happy or not. I helped her because she could hold back Yao Yi. Xiaochu, we grew up together since we were young. We are the most suitable. You said you would only love me in your life and that you would only have children for me. How can you like someone else?" Shinxinian seemed to have a mental problem, talking nonsense. In my previous life, Grandma Shin had always been looking forward to a great-grandson. Unfortunately, before the child was born, Shinxinian and I were hit and killed. After being reborn, he finally remembered our poor baby. I rolled my eyes. I didn't believe a single word he said. I looked at Shinsinian coldly. We're not kids anymore. There's no need to make it too embarrassing. Grandma is old and can't be frightened. I will move out as soon as possible. Please don't cause me any more trouble. I didn't pay attention to Shinsinian's reaction anymore. I turned around and left. As soon as I went downstairs, I saw Grandma Shen, who was full of worry. Choo-choo, did you quarrel with Sinian? Why don't you get engaged before you go abroad? Grandma will make the decision for you. I quietly withdrew my hand and lowered my head, no longer looking at Grandma Shen. Grandma, I won't go abroad. I have a boyfriend, and Shinsinian, he doesn't like me. After hearing this, Grandma Shen didn't say anything more, just couldn't stop sighing. 8. It was graduation season, and it was not easy to find a house. I had been looking for several days but hadn't found a suitable one. Instead, I ran into Yao Yi on the road. He said he had several vacant houses and told me to choose one to live in without paying rent. I didn't want to owe him, so I still had to pay the rent. Moreover, the scholarship I had in hand was enough for my expenses during this period. On the day when the rental contract was finalized, I treated Yao Yi to a meal. When he sent me back, we happened to meet Shinsinian, who had been trying to block me all day long. Accompanied by the warm summer breeze, Yao Yi and I were taking a walk to digest food. As soon as we turned a corner, we bumped into Shinsinian, who was waiting at the entrance of the villa. He was leaning against the wall of the gate, and the dim street lamp couldn't clearly illuminate the expression on his face. But it was clear that his gaze fixed on me was almost blazing with anger. Nianchu, stay away from him. Shinsinian's disgusting possessiveness was acting up again. He walked quickly towards us and reached out to pull me. However, he was blocked by Yao Yi's tall figure. Since I was a child, I had been afraid of an angry Shinsinian, and subconsciously, I grabbed Yao Yi's sleeve. Yao Yi visibly stiffened for a moment. But the next moment, he firmly held my hand in return. He gently shook it, indicating that I shouldn't be afraid. Beside Yao Yi, I looked up at him. For the first time, I felt what it was like to be protected. It was an indescribable sense of peace of mind. I was a bit greedy and leaned closer to Yao Yi. Apparently, my actions infuriated Shinsinian. He strode forward to pull Yao Yi's hand away. As a result, he was pushed away by Yao Yi. Brother-in-law, I'm sending my girlfriend home. Do you have to interfere with this? Shinsinian was so angry at Yao Yi's words that his eyes seemed about to split. He seemed to have forgotten that I was no longer his wife. We had both been reborn, and now I was just Shinsinian's stepsister with no blood relation. I hid behind Yao Yi and secretly gave him a thumbs up. Good guy. He got into the role instantly in front of the enemy. Shinsinian was so angry that he raised his hand to hit someone. He was stopped by Aunt Shen, who came out to look for him. She calmly sized up Yao Yi and me and said to me indifferently, Xiaochu, there are guests at home today. Ask your classmate to come to play another time. Shinsinian's mother had always looked down on me, especially after that chaotic night between me and Shinsinian in my previous life. She even more believed that I was coveting wealth and deliberately scheming against Shinsinian just to marry into the Shin family. After being reborn, when I saw the contemptuous look in Shinsinian's mother's eyes again, I didn't know where I got the courage from. In front of her, I affectionately hugged Yao Yi's arm and said coyly, Auntie, this is my boyfriend. Since there are guests at home, why don't I come back later? After saying that, I made a show of being inseparable from Yao Yi, reluctant to part. Whether in my previous life or this life, I never liked Shinsinian, and I was not at all eager for the position of the Shin family's daughter-in-law. Shinsinian's mother clearly didn't expect me to be so bold. Surprise flashed across her face, but she quickly returned to normal. She became the arrogant noblewoman again. Only the punching bag changed from me to Shinsinian. She glared at Shinsinian, quite disappointed with him. Useless thing, come in with me. After saying that, she dragged Shinsinian back. Seeing that I didn't follow, her steps paused for a moment, and she slightly turned her head, saying in a flat tone, Xiaochu, come too, this matter concerns you too. I patted Yao Yi's hand holding mine, indicating that he could let go, but he was a bit worried and whispered in my ear, I'm not. I'll wait for you at the door for a while. Call me if there's anything. I nodded obediently and followed back to the Shin family, but I didn't expect that as soon as I entered the door, I saw an unexpected person. 9. Grandma Shen always went to bed early. However, it was already 10 o'clock today, and she was still sitting on the Grand Master chair with a worried look on her face. I wondered what kind of guests could alarm Grandma Shen. Shinsinian and I entered one after another, and Grandma Shen let out a long sigh. Alas, Sinian. What you've done has completely shamed our Shen family. I silently looked at the guest sitting on the sofa, with a fearless look on her face. I also sighed in my heart. Man proposes, God disposes. The person who had disappeared for so long had now come back on her own. The day after the dinner, Song Yi disappeared after crying and leaving. After more than a month, Song Yi appeared again now. Her disdainful eyes passed over me and landed on Shen Sinian. She touched her belly and said pitifully, Sinian, I'm pregnant. Aren't you going to take responsibility for me yet? As soon as these words were spoken, Grandma Shen sighed continuously. Shen Sinian also frowned tightly. Probably he didn't expect that the white moonlight he couldn't get in his previous life, after being reborn, would stick to him like a leech, taking the initiative to pester him. I didn't understand. This was clearly what Shen Sinian had always wanted. Why did he look so gloomy now? I lowered my head and remained silent. Hiding beside Grandma Shen, Song Yi was now heavily made up and looked tough, and it was hard to tell that she was the same age as us. I had to say that she had the means to deceive everyone in her previous life. Obviously, Song Yi's parents were also present. Although her parents looked a bit honest and timid, she bypassed her parents and talked to the elders of the Shen family by herself. Her attitude was clear: either get engaged to Shen Sinian now and secure the position of Mrs. Shen in the future, or she had to be given an exorbitant hush money. Once she got the money, she would abort the child. Otherwise, she would make the matter public and completely shame the Shen family. When Grandma Shen heard her say she wanted to abort the child, she wished they could get married right away. But when she saw me standing beside her, Grandma Shen hesitated again. At this time, Shen Sinian's mother couldn't sit still. In my previous life, she had never liked me no matter what. Now I had become the well-behaved and obedient daughter-in-law in her eyes. Xiaochu is the daughter-in-law I had my eye on a long time ago. What are you? Who knows how you got pregnant? If you want money, go for an amniocentesis and do a paternity test. The children of our Shen family will definitely not be left outside, but you, don't even think about entering the door of our Shen family. Shen Xinyan's mother became more and more excited as she spoke. And the scene suddenly became chaotic. Grandma Shen shook her head and sighed, stopping Shen Xinyan's mother, saying that there was something to discuss and asking us two to go upstairs. Sinian, you wait downstairs, pour water for uncle and aunt, don't lose your manners. I didn't know what Grandma Shen was going to say and just followed her upstairs with my head down. At this time, Shen Xinyan's mother seemed to suddenly discover my goodness. She took my hand, looking affectionate. Until we entered the study with Grandma Shen, Shen Xinyan's mother was still repeating, Xiaochu, Auntie only recognizes you as her daughter-in-law. You grew up in front of Auntie's eyes. You're so cute and sensible. Auntie loves you the most. You mustn't be deceived by outsiders. That boy just now, he looks hard to control at first glance. How can he be as steady as your brother Sinian? Xiaochu, be obedient and go abroad with Sinian at ease. When you come back, Auntie will definitely hold a grand wedding for you. Aunt Shen's words were interrupted by the sound of Grandma Shen's cane hitting the ground. Grandma Shen looked extremely tired. She sat in front of the desk and looked at me as if she didn't know how to start. I withdrew my hand from Aunt Shen's and said to Grandma Shen, Grandma, brother Sinian doesn't like me, and I never thought of marrying him. Moreover, the classmates at school all know that the girl he likes is the one who came downstairs. Auntie, the Shen family has raised me so well, I can't bite the hand that feeds me. I'll leave tonight and make way for the person downstairs. Grandma, I've grown up and can take care of myself. After I finished speaking, tears welled up in Grandma Shen's eyes. She had raised me as her own granddaughter. Before, she often said that when I grew up, I should marry Shen Sinian so that I wouldn't be bullied after getting married. Grandma Shen was really kind to me. Now that such a thing had happened to Shen Sinian, Grandma Shen wouldn't force me. But Shen Xinyan's mother might not be the same. She couldn't stand her son being rejected. Her finger with bright red nail polish poked my forehead one by one, scolding me for being ungrateful. That's enough. The teacup was smashed at Shen Xinyan's mother's feet. Grandma Shen shouted angrily. Then she took out a document from the safe and asked me to go over and take it. Xiaochu, this is the shares left to you by your biological parents. I originally wanted to give it to you when you got married as a dowry, but now that you're grown up, it's better to let you keep it yourself. I stared blankly at Grandma Shen. My parents had actually left me something. I was actually loved by someone. I took the slightly thick document with trembling hands, and my eyes were misty. In my previous life, until I died miserably. I had never heard of this inheritance left by my biological parents. In this new life, there was actually an unexpected surprise. When Shinsenyan's mother saw that I had accepted it, she still tried to stop me. "Mom, why did you really give it to her?" I ignored her and tried my best to control my trembling hands and flipped through the document. My parents had actually left me a considerable inheritance. No wonder I had never heard of this in my previous life. I'm afraid it had all been embezzled by Shinsenyan's mother. I carefully held the document in my arms and bowed to Grandma Shin. "Grandma, thank you for your kindness in raising me all these years. I will take care of myself in the future. I'll move out tonight. I'll come back to see you when I'm free." After saying that, I turned around and left to get my documents from my room. When I went downstairs, Shinsenyan saw me carrying my bag and about to leave. He reached out to stop me. His eyes were unfathomable, and I didn't know what he was thinking. "Where are you going?" "It's none of your business." I looked at the small bag in my hand and smiled self-deprecatingly. I had lived in the Shin family for more than 10 years. When I was leaving, the things that belonged to me were actually only so little. Song-yi couldn't stand Shinsenyan and me lingering. From a distance, she put on the airs of a hostess. "Yo, you're leaving, don't come back often in the future." I ignored her. I shook off Shinsenyan's hand, patted the place he had touched in disgust, and said sarcastically, "Shinsenyan, you've always wanted a child, right? Look, someone is going to give birth to one for you." 10. As soon as I went out, I saw Yaoyi waiting at the door. He naturally took the bag in my hand and gently wiped away the tears on my face. His fingers with body temperature landed on my forehead, where Shinsenyan's mother had poked me with her hand. He carefully looked at me, his eyes full of worry. "Are you okay?" I gave him a big smile in return. "Yaoyi, I'm free." At this moment, I truly felt that my future life was bright. "Thank you, Yaoyi, you don't have to pretend to be my boyfriend anymore. From now on, you're my landlord." "May I ask, landlord, can I move in tonight?" As I spoke, I walked forward happily, not noticing Yaoya's gradually slowing pace at all. It was not until the boy's slightly disappointed voice came from behind that I noticed Yaoyi had stopped there. "Ah, you're welcome. But I don't want to break up." I didn't quite understand. This wasn't really a breakup, was it? We hadn't really dated in the first place. Yaoya's tall figure looked a bit lonely under the illumination of the street lamp. I walked over and tugged at his arm. "Come on, I still don't have a place to live tonight." Feeling that Yaoyi was a bit reluctant, I also felt that I really seemed to be using people and then discarding them, so I took the initiative to reflect on myself. "I really didn't help you annoy Shinsenyan. I think it's probably useless for you to take revenge on Shinsenyan through me. He doesn't like me at all." My voice got smaller and smaller as I spoke. The remaining half sentence that I didn't say was, "And you don't like me either. It's better to end it as soon as possible." Before I could finish speaking, Yaoyi blurted out a sentence. "He likes you. I also." Yaoyi suddenly stopped speaking halfway through, which was really tantalizing. "What did you say?" I didn't hear clearly. At this time, Yaoyi suddenly quickened his pace and walked in front of me. Then he slowly said, "I said, I also think you're right. Shinsenyan doesn't deserve you." I trotted a few steps to catch up with him. "As a reward, sometime later, I'll show you a big show. It will definitely satisfy you. If Shinsenyan can have an easy time, my surname will be yours." Yaoyi stopped, turned around to look at me, and said word by word, "Okay, I'll listen to you." The seriousness in Yaoya's eyes made me a bit scared. It seemed that he was especially looking forward to that day. 11. Fortunately, someone was looking forward to that day more than me. Song-yi's pregnancy couldn't wait. Grandma Shin directly set the wedding date. However, on the wedding day, Shinsenyan actually fled the wedding. No one knew where he had gone. Song-yi in the backstage of the wedding was so angry that she smashed the dressing room. But no matter how angry she was, she had to endure it. She had planned so much just to find a good background for the child in her womb. That's why on the night of the dinner, she said that either Yaoyi or Shinsenyan would do. In her previous life, during the 10 years when Song-yi disappeared, she didn't marry Yaoyi smoothly as the rumors said. Instead, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison for poisoning Yaoyi and extortion. Originally, since Song-yi was pregnant, she could have received a lighter sentence, but she drank too much wine on the night of the dinner and didn't pay attention at all during her pregnancy. This led to the deformity of the fetus, and she had a miscarriage early. Thinking about it now, it was probably during this period of time, at the wedding scene. The groom didn't show up, and it was in a noisy mess. Shin Xinyan's mother was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Song Yi, on the other hand, was comforting her while covering her stomach. However, they couldn't get in touch with Shin Xinyan no matter what. Yao Yi and I looked at each other and smiled, quietly waiting for Shin Xinyan to appear. Shin Xinyan was extremely conceited, and he would definitely come back. Song Yi had calculated him and played him for a fool. I'm afraid Shin Xinyan even had the thought of killing her. He regarded such a person as his white moonlight. He probably regretted it to the core. The stage was all set up, and it was really a pity that the male protagonist wasn't there. At this moment, I received a message. It was the news that Shin Xinyan had come out of the hospital. The cleaning auntie in the hospital had, as I instructed, accidentally let Shin Xinyan see Song Yi's test report, coincidentally. When Yao Yi asked me to accompany him for a follow-up examination, we unexpectedly saw that Song Yi was also there. The way she was hiding and covering up clearly indicated that something was fishy. She was so afraid that others would see the test report in her hand that she threw it away as soon as she went out. After she left, I picked it up. It showed that Song Yi was 3 months pregnant. However, from the day of the graduation dinner until now, it had been less than 2 months. In addition, during the months before graduation, Shin Xinyan had been abroad taking the IELTS exam and wasn't at school at all. No matter how you calculated it, this child wasn't his. I put down my phone and calmly looked at the entrance of the hall. Sure enough, Shin Xinyan, with a gloomy face, came. Song Yi took the initiative to greet him and, pretending to be concerned, wiped the sweat off Shin Xinyan's face with her own hands, but Shin Xinyan pushed her away and coldly questioned her. Don't you have anything to say? Song Yi was embarrassed in front of so many people by Shin Xinyan. An embarrassed look flashed across her face, but she quickly looked on the verge of tears. With tears in her eyes, she was full of grievances. Xinyan, today is our wedding day. It's fine that you didn't go to pick up the bride. You were so late and made me wait for you with a big belly. Don't you have anything to say? Shin Xinyan's face was extremely disapproving, and the veins on his forehead popped out. Yes, you, and that bastard in your belly, get out of here. Then he picked up the microphone and tapped it twice. Song Yi sensed something was wrong and desperately tried to snatch the microphone from Shin Xinyan. As a result, she was pushed away violently by Shin Xinyan and crashed into the pillar of the hall. Without even looking at her, Shin Xinyan directly announced in public, the wedding is cancelled. Song Yi sat alone on the ground, and it took her a long time to come to her senses. Regardless of her dizziness, as soon as she stood up, she started tugging at Shin Xinyan. She had planned this for so long, and it was on the verge of success. She couldn't accept Shin Xinyan's sudden change of attitude. However, as if suddenly awakened, she suddenly walked up to me and questioned me. Sure Nianchu, what exactly did I do to sorry you? Why are you framing me? Do you really can't stand to see me happy? Song Yi was so emotional that she started grabbing my shoulders again. Yao Yi wanted to help me pull Song Yi away, but I stopped him with a look. Shin Xinyan also came over and pulled her. Song Yi didn't dare to say anything to Shin Xinyan, so she took out all her anger on me. I even blocked the wine for you back then. You can't break me and Xinyan apart. Before she could finish speaking, I waved her arm away. I raised my hand to slap her. Song Yi instinctively tried to dodge, and then I remembered not to hit a pregnant woman, so I turned my head and slapped Shin Xinyan twice. Shin Xinyan was stunned by my slaps and stood there holding his face in a daze. He still dared to speak. I changed my hand and slapped him twice more. At this time, Shin Xinyan's mother squeezed over. Xiaochu, what about me? I had been waiting for this day for a long time. I don't hit women, and I don't hit elders. Can't I hit Shin Xinyan? Every time misses. Shin said a word. I slapped Shin Xinyan once. Do you have anything else to say? I was a bit tired from slapping. While these people hadn't reacted yet, I suddenly took a step back and retreated to a safe distance. Soon, the whole scene was in chaos. Song Yi unfortunately had a miscarriage during the argument with Shin Xinyan, and Shin Xinyan was taken away by the police. Shin Xinyan was also involved in the incident of Yao Yi being drugged. This wedding finally ended in absurdity. The next moment, we were both hit and sent flying by a car. I heard that before she fully recovered, she couldn't wait to go to the Shin family to demand an exorbitant compensation. As a result, just like in her previous life, Song Yi still couldn't escape the charge of extortion. She was also severely scolded by Shin Xinyan, who met her on the street. He said that she was too ambitious but had a poor fate, and she had schemed so much but ended up getting nothing in the end. Song Yi, who was mocked, completely lost her mind and directly drove into Shinsinian. In the end, the two of them perished together. After I found out, I couldn't help but sigh. Shinsinian had lived 2 lifetimes but still couldn't escape the ending of being hit and killed. Perhaps this was his fate, everything was his own choice, and no matter what the consequences were, he had to bear them himself.